case again, man. Cause some man say them a dope and them a done, but the prophet speaking, man. Have mercy. Watch ya, man. Big things. Hear this. Say them a walk out and I run up them mouth. One lyrics they go use and get the whole of them out. Them a walk out and I run up them mouth. One lyrics you a go on, yeah, man. Them say that them a dope. Someone say them a done, but me a profit. Tell them the son of Abraham, them say them a dope. Someone say them a done, but me a profit. Tell them the son of Abraham, me inspired by God and not by man. I'm elected and permitted to teach the nation. The Bible is fulfilling all we understand. So from Genesis down to Revelation, so shall it be in the end. Likewise begun, only the strong shall survive. All we understand, not a chance. The weak don't stand on the limit. Calling the rich, tell them say them a dope. Someone say them a done, but me a prophet. Tell them the son of Abraham, them say them a dope. Someone say them a done, but me a prophet. Tell them the son of Abraham, red, black and green, and the color of the land. That was elected by Marcus, they done no red. That a one blood for every man. Black, I for the black population. Green, I for Africa, the motherland. Africa we from, and a day we belong. Them can't live me in a the repatriation. Them say them a dope. Someone say them a done, but me a prophet. Tell them the son of Abraham, say them a walk out and I run up them mouth. One lyrics not gonna use and get the one of them out.
I have been absent from this country for 5 months, being away in the West Indies and in Central America, traveling in the interest of the movement I represent as its President General. During my absence from America, I had occasion to observe with a great degree of disgust how narrow-minded the so-called leaders of the Negro race are. In that, immediately after I took my departure from the country, the men who are supposed to represent and lead Negro thought in America endeavored to represent me to the government of the United States by charging me with anarchy and with an intention to destroy the loyalty of Negroes to the government of this great country. These representations were made to the state and other departments, which occasioned me great embarrassment in returning to these doors. As by such information to the departments of state, such instructions were given therefrom to the various consular officers outside of the country representing the government not to give them my passport for return to this country. I had ultimately to appeal to the good services of the Honorable Charles Evans Hughes, Secretary of State, whom I believe represents truly and thoroughly the spirit of the American Constitution. I explained to him the situation, and he immediately gave instructions that my passport be visited for a return to the United States of America. This action of his defeated the misrepresentation made by the enemies of my organization and by the enemies of the Negro race to prevent my return to my sphere of labor. With all the embarrassment, I am once more in the United States of America, and it is for me to avow not only my loyalty to the Constitution, laws and government of the United States, but also avow that loyalty that is characteristic of the members of the Universal Negro Improvement Association to government. The Universal Negro Improvement Association teaches its members everywhere to be loyal to government, but at the same time to be loyal to the great race of which they are members. As an organization, we desire our educational, industrial, social, and political advancement. Because of this desire, we are loyal to ourselves and to our Constitution. But it being us loyal does not mean that we are disloyal to any government or that we have no sympathy with other races. We love humanity. We desire peace. And anything the Universal Negro Improvement Association and I can do for the advancement of the cause of humanity and for the permanent establishment of peace, we shall be glad to do. I am now convinced more than ever that the Negro lacks proper leadership. The men who have led in the past are incapable. I therefore appeal to the new manhood of this race of ours to give us leadership. Leadership that is unselfish. Leadership that knows no price. We can do no better than copy the leadership of the great Anglo-Saxon race. That leadership that gave to the world William Pitt, William Ewart Gladstone, A. Disraeli, and S. Chamberlain. And last but not least among them all, A. David Lloyd George.
Let's make an effort towards black self-worth. I say hey, let us work and pray. Let us work, let us pray. You and I, self-reliance is the way black people today. Let let us pray. You and I, self-reliance is the only way. Come make we study Garvey, come make we study Garvey. Know your history, brother, we destiny. Study Garvey, come make we study Garvey. Know the prophecy, our destiny. I man would like to reflect on the message that Marcus left. Oh yes, cause if you look around, some don't know self-reliance yet, not yet. So gather your thoughts and come along, children. This is a chance for your freedom. If you're willing to be free, free from slavery, come follow them your teachings of Marcus Garvey. Make we study Garvey, come make we study Garvey. Know your history, our destiny.
Marcus Garvey was the first black man to come into this country and get a mass movement, an allegiance, support of the masses of black people. Why? Because Garvey didn't care what the white man thought. Garvey didn't care how the white man felt. Garvey had the feelings of the black man at heart. Garvey had the hopes and aspirations of the black man at heart. And the black masses detected this. They felt this. They were conscious of this. So they gave Garvey their support. And anyone today who can get a following among the masses of black people in this country is immediately labeled by the United States government as un-American, as seditious, as subversive, as Marcus Garvey was labeled un-American, as seditious and subversive. Any black man who has the true intention of solving the problem of the masses of black people in this country, the government itself will try and trick that man and trap that man and frame that man. And usually he'll do it by these Uncle Tom Negro leaders whom the government has set up. The Negro intellectual was against Garvey. The Negro professional was against Garvey because Garvey represented the black man.
Talking about Marcus Garvey, Marcus Messiah Garvey. Marcus Messiah Garvey, Marcus Messiah Garvey, Marcus Messiah Garvey, man of nobility, man of nobility. He said, up, immaculate, one God, one aim, one destiny. Africa, for Africans, at home and abroad, we must all unite, sing Marcus.
What's happening right now? Who's outside?
The police.
What are they trying to do?
They trying to kill us.
Do you want to go out there?
No.
You're not going to get shot at all, you hear me? Force Smith, get EMS and her out. We got the car, it's flipped over. Smoking. She's trying to get that gun out. Let's go on the rifle! The rifle out of his lock back there. Force Smith, advise. We got one tased. Force Smith, get EMS and her out. We got the car, it's flipped over.
The police. They trying to kill us.
When you have an identity, it is difficult for another person to impose a set of values on you. Because having a positive identity and a solid identity is a defense against being penetrated by alien forces. A positive identity functions to locate us in the world, in space and in time and in history. A positive identity gives us a sense of purpose and a sense of direction. A positive identity provides us with self-knowledge and direction. A positive identity provides us with a sense of belongingness. When we say we are African, we are not merely identifying ourselves as individuals. We indicate that we belong to a people, to a culture, to a nation, that we belong to a system of values, a system of perceptions, a system of behavior, folkways, and mores. A system, an identity permits us to cooperate with other people. It permits us to understand what role we must play within a particular group. An identity permits us to know our own interests. An identity permits us to provide ourselves with an evaluative system, permits us to evaluate what is going on in the world. And identity provides us with a defense against possession. I've often said that we cannot be African and be slaves and subordinates of other people at the same time. We cannot be fully identified and at one with our African identity and be subordinate to another people. The European, of course, recognized this immediately. That is why when we talk about our slave history, we often talk about the destruction of African culture. We talk about the rewriting of black history as an attempt, again, of destroying the African culture and an African personality. We recognize that the destruction of that personality, the separating of us from our culture, the separating of us from our history, is a separation of us ultimately from our identity. It means a split and a schism is created in the personality. When a schism and a split is created in the personality, the individual is made exceedingly uncomfortable. It is the first rule of brainwashing. When you wish to brainwash a person, when you wish to transform their personality, you break them from their old personality. You break them from their old moorings. You make them question and doubt their previous culture and their previous learning. When you get them to begin to doubt themselves, when you get them to reject their culture, when you get them to see their past lives as negative, when you get them to feel ashamed of that past life, when you get them to feel guilty of that past life, and any good brainwasher knows this, and you check out the Moonies and any other brainwashing organization, you will see this process being put forth. Once you get that, the individual then is left in a tremendous state of confusion, in a tremendous state of ambivalence. That state is painful. It motivates the individual then to seek some kind of relief, to seek some way out. Then it becomes the function of the brainwasher to say, if you follow my way, if you accept my definition, if you do it the way I say do it, if you look at it the way I say look at it, if you value it the way I say value it, then you will feel better. See how happy we are. And you know, often in these quasi-religious brainwashing places, you see the people running around smiling, and they're all glory, and they're all happy, and they're all loving, and they're all, and here's this confused person cut off from family, cut off from his community, cut off from everything he's known, and is filled with pain, and yet these people seem to be so loving, they seem to be so brotherly, they seem to be so sisterly. Then let me get what they have. And of course these people are here to say, see, if you thought the way we thought, if you look at things the way we look at it, you'll be happy, you'll be one, you'll be accepted. Then often the individual then accepts the values and the orientation of the brainwashing group and then becomes a part of that group. The splitting then of the African personality is a necessary process in inculcating into that personality an alien personality, an alien spirit, creating the personality of servitude. It makes possible then, in that African personality, that is the split African personality, makes it possible then for the African to begin to believe the lies, to accept the European distortions, to accept European reality, to accept then the stereotypes the Europeans have projected. And it's very interesting as you ride the subways today, and it becomes an embarrassing event to watch our youngsters use the degrading term they use again and again, so loudly, so unself-consciously. When I grew up, the idea of using this term in public, the idea of letting white folk hear you using that term, letting any other group of people hear you referring to yourself by that term was unbelievable. But now this seems to be the coin of the realm. And we hear it all the time, yeah, that nigga this, that nigga that, and it just goes again and again and again. People must have been destroyed in many ways to talk about themselves in public and to be this way so loudly and so clearly. You must then break the African person from his African identity in order for this to happen. And this, of course, is what happens. Nature abhors a vacuum, we say. In other words, where there's a vacuum, there's an attempt for that vacuum to be filled in some way or another. And of course, we see that when we suck sodas with a straw, we create a vacuum, of course, and that vacuum sucks into it whatever we are drinking. When you create a vacuum in the personality by separating the African personality from its African identity, then there is an attempt for that personality to suck into itself something else, to fill its emptiness. When the European then is in control of information, when the European is in control of so-called knowledge, when the European is in control of so-called reality, in control of definition and so forth, it will be these things that are sucked into the African personality. When the European projects lies as truth, there will then be these lies sucked in through the vacuum of the split African personality and accepted as truth. And then this personality, these sucked in lies, these sucked in perceptions, these sucked in distorted views of reality will take on a life of their own. They will take on a structure and an organization and represent themselves as a personality. At that point, the African personality becomes possessed by a spirit. When we hear, as I said earlier, about the black boys and our children talking that language on the subway and speaking the way they speak, in a way it is not they who speak. It is the spirit in them that speaks using their mouths, using their bodies. When they then believe the lies that they cannot learn as well or better than any other people, when they are afraid to try, when they are afraid of failure, when they are afraid of success, when they are afraid to challenge the European. You see, we talk about racism, but I don't think we are yet really ready to do something about it. Because doing something about it in the ultimate sense means preventing and neutralizing the perpetrators of racism. Ultimately, it means, ladies and gentlemen, removing the Europeans' ability to perpetrate racism in the world. Not getting the European to love us, not getting the European to so assimilate with us or to accept us, but getting the European in a position where no matter how scandalous he is in terms of us, he can do a doggone thing about it. Because we then have the power in and of ourselves to defend ourselves against his insult and against his slander. Ultimately, then, the removal of racism for the world would mean the ultimate neutralizing of European power. But many of us are not ready yet to take on that task. Many of us are still afraid that we are not up to that task, that we cannot defeat the European, that we cannot neutralize the European. So we have opted for some kind of armistice, some type of suing for peace, some type of getting along, because we figure that is the best that we can do. Then in this sense, then we will be continued to be possessed by an alien spirit. And that alien spirit then will speak to us. When we then fail to believe in ourselves as people, it is because that spirit has taken over us, and it says to us, what the European has said. You can't succeed. You can't run the world on your own. You're incapable of having a culture. Without us, you wouldn't have VCRs. You wouldn't have TVs because, see, you're not technical and you know you love it. You wouldn't have compact disc and you know you're into your music, you see. And you wouldn't have this and you wouldn't have that. Europeans are mathematically gifted and you are not mathematically oriented, and Jews can count money and you don't know how to keep money. That means that there's a spirit in us, and that spirit whispers to us, and it keeps us from attempting many of the things that we should attempt. This can only occur when we have been separated from our African selves.
That black people should have dominion over the wealth that we generate, then use it to create a united African state. Now we're back against the wall, and the wall seems like it a fall, and we'll never make it in time on the Black Star Line, and we're still in doubt, figuring what black is all about. It's time to open our eyes and really realize that Yahweh was wise. Jah know, say we're right. One game in sight, through a destiny we have to fight. Hope you mighty race, black people, we have a case against the history that them teach, about the heaven that them preach. So no bother, sit down, and think another gap ya go come, cause it done, show the way, this is the dawning of a new day. Now I declare that the only fear is fear. So up you mighty race, get up and hold up your face. Come stretch out your hand, that dear motherland. You have nothing to lose. If Africa you choose, it's time to open your eyes and really realize that Yahweh was wise. Can know, say we're right. One aim, insight, through a destiny we have to fight. One job, one aim, one destiny. That black people should have dominion over the wealth that we generate, then use it to create united African state.
Fellow citizens of Africa, I greet you in the name of the Universal Negro Improvement Association and African Communities League of the World. You may ask, what organization is that? It is for me to inform you that the Universal Negro Improvement Association is an organization that seeks to unite into one solid body the 400 million Negroes of the world, to link up the 15 million Negroes of the United States of America with the 20 million Negroes of the West Indies, the 40 million Negroes of South and Central America with the 280 million Negroes of Africa for the purpose of bettering our industrial, commercial, educational, social, and political conditions. As you are aware, the world in which we live today is divided into separate race groups and distinct nationalities. Each race and each nationality is endeavoring to work out its own destiny to the exclusion of other races and other nationalities. We hear the cry of England for the Englishman, of France for the Frenchman, of Germany for the German, of Ireland for the Irish, of Palestine for the Jew, of Japan for the Japanese, of China for the Chinese. We of the Universal Negro Movement Association are raising the cry of Africa for the Africans, those at home and those abroad. There are 400 million Africans in the world who have Negro blood coursing through their veins. And we believe that the time has come to unite these 400 million people for the one common purpose of bettering their condition. The great problem of the Negro for the last 500 years has been that of disunity. No one or no organization ever succeeded in uniting the Negro race. But within the last 4 years, the Universal Negro Movement Association has worked wonders in bringing together in one fold 4 million organized Negroes who are scattered in all parts of the world, being in the 48 states of the American Union, all the West Indian Islands, and the countries of South and Central America and Africa. These 4 million people are working to convert the rest of the 400 million scattered all over the world. And it is for this purpose that we are asking you to join our ranks and to do the best you can to help us to bring about an emancipated race. If anything praiseworthy is to be done, it must be done through unity. And it is for that reason that the Universal Negro Movement Association calls upon every Negro in the United States to rally to this standard. We want to unite the Negro race in this country. We want every Negro to work for one common object, that of building a nation of his own on the great continent of Africa. That all Negroes all over the world are working for the establishment of a government in Africa means that it will be realized in another few years. We want the moral and financial support of every Negro to make the dream a possibility. Already, this organization has established itself in Nigeria, West Africa, and is endeavoring to do all possible to develop that Negro country to become a great industrial and commercial commonwealth. Pioneers have been sent by this organization to Nigeria, and they are now laying the foundations upon which the 400 million Negroes of the world will build. If you believe that the Negro has a soul, if you believe that the Negro is a man, if you believe the Negro was endowed with the senses commonly given to other men by the Creator, then you must acknowledge that what other men have done, Negroes can do. We want to build up cities, nations, governments, industries of our own in Africa, so that we'll be able to have a chance to rise from the lowest to the highest positions in the African Commonwealth.
What if you ever enter more than being dedicated to all the progressive youth, them man, all the progressive people, them in the world, I keep telling again, for them kids. What me tell them, say we not high class, say we well progressive. Tell you one of them no matter what how we live and we not high class, say we well progressive. Tell you one of them no matter what how we live, me don't make it. While it's on China, life is only a matter of time it's gonna make it. While it's on China, life is only a matter of time and we seek and we surely find education in a fit and a powerful mind. Jericho wall, no nothing for we climb. Remember, never get this out your mind. Nothing never happened before. Get time it no make it. While it's on China, life is only a matter of time it no make it. While it's on China, life is only a matter of time. Life hard, but you still make a move. Cause if you make a move, you will surely improve. Life hard, but you still make a break. Cause if you make a break, you will go through the gate. Life hard, but you still make a try. Cause if you make a try, you must get a blind. Life hard, but you still make a turn. Cause if you make a turn, you surely gonna earn. Life hard, but you still make a step. Cause if you make a step, that is the key to success. Me telling me, why let them die?
That Muta Baruka again, you know, is the Honorable Muta Baruka OD. Yes. That's so by protocol, you know, in when? Heroes Day? Yeah, Muta is one of 4 people from the arts who gonna be honored by the government, you know. 6 highest honor. So you can't say Muta Baruka again. Hey, Muta. You have to say the Honorable Muta Baruka OD.
Like my story, like my story, not his story. Like my story, like my story, like my story.
Real News Network. I'm Jessica Devereaux in Washington, and welcome to this edition of the Bill Black Report. Now joining us is Bill Black. Bill is an associate professor of economics and law at the University of Missouri, Kansas City. He's also a white-collar criminologist and former financial regulator and author of the book, The Best Way to Rob a Bank is to Own One. And of course, he's a regular contributor to The Real News. Thanks for joining us, Bill.
Thank you.
So, Bill, a lot of news coming out of the IMF this week. What have you been tracking exactly?
Okay, so here's the 30-second background. IMF stands for International Monetary Fund. It's an international group that is supposed to assist countries that are suffering an acute financial crisis, as opposed to the World Bank, which is supposed to help folks more generally in development. And by tradition, the World Bank is run by an American and the IMF is run by a European. In this case, by a series of French politicians, currently Madame Lagarde, and it's the IMF and she have gotten into a series of major embarrassments recently. First, she is being charged with a crime while she sits as head of the IMF. And this crime is under French law from her role earlier as a minister in the French government, where there was a suit emerging against a bank, and that bank got into enough economic trouble that it was bailed out by the French government, became a public bank, and Lagarde allowed claimants against this bank who were political allies of her and her party to sue the French government, not in court with the normal defenses you would have, but through an arbitration system where, unsurprisingly, the French lost big time. This is ultimately reversed by a court, but this is seen as a scandal in which she attempted to bail out a major creditor by intervening to help them take an action that she should have been moving exactly the opposite direction to protect French funds. So it's a weird crime from a U.S. perspective in that the charge is negligence as opposed to deliberate crime, but it's still obviously a major embarrassment. Second big thing, the IMF has long been criticized, including by a Nobel Prize winner in economics, as being staffed, and I quote, by third-rate economists, and has been traditionally, while supposedly helping nations in economic crisis, it has been a very neoliberal hammer that says, hey, actually, we're going to force your head of state out of office. And hey, we don't like a whole bunch of policies that you have, which we think are not good for other European nations and such. And so you are going to change all those policies. And you're
like what they did in Greece.
Like what they did in Greece, but even worse in literally 60, 70 different nations. And this is very tied in with the Washington Consensus as well, pushing all these nations towards very right-wing policies. Anyway, so IMF, with all those problems, has at least had a standing doctrine that says you can't hammer the government in this way without giving it and force it into a position where it is in a long-run debt trap where it can't get out, because that's just stupid, right? And so when it came to Greece and the European Union wanted the IMF involved in the supposed bailout of the Greeks, which is really a bailout of mostly German but not exclusively German banks, they had to ignore this requirement of the IMF because Of course, that's exactly what they were forcing the Greeks into, and all of the economic work by IMF economists showed that. Now, on top of that, the IMF forever has been this big believer in austerity, but IMF economists have started to publish that austerity is an incredibly stupid response to an economic crisis.
But aren't they third-rate economists, Bill? Like you were saying.
Well, no, these are the new economists hired in part because of the embarrassment of the really bad pro-austerity economics that didn't work, right? Okay. And so the economics profession, parts of it actually have been changing for the better. IMF has some of that flavor. And if you simply do straight work in economics, of course you would have found, as they did, that not only did austerity fail, but that stimulus worked really well. So IMF has started publishing papers that say not only did stimulus work, stimulus was more effective than its proponents said it would be, right? So, and coming from the IMF, this is pretty amazing stuff. So all of that had to get ignored in Greece. Forcing Greece into a debt trap had to be ignored. They couldn't go to their board, which they're supposed to, with their plan on Greece, because they would have had to explain they were violating their own rules. So they didn't even go to their board. And so the equivalent of an internal auditor at the IMF has released a report scorching the IMF leadership, which of course is run by the same person who is being prosecuted as a criminal by the French and is running one of the most powerful financial institutions in the world. And on top of all that, to bring it back to the United States, Hillary Clinton has said recently, oh, no, we can't have those kind of stimulus programs because, and I will paraphrase and almost directly quote her, that's what produced Germany in the 1920s and Zimbabwe in the 1990s. In other words, hyperinflation. So Hillary Clinton, the Democratic nominee for the president, is now far to the right, in the loony right, of the IMF and where its third-rate economists used to be. So now we have the insanity that Hillary Clinton is far, far, far to the right of the most historically right-wing loony economists, the third-rate economists at the IMF. So that must make her consulting fifth-rate economists.
Yeah, and all of these policies, though, have real effects on everyday people. So it's a bit troubling, Bill.
It is, and so as we're talking, very good job numbers have come out today, but it is true that the recovery from the Great Recession compared to other recoveries has been relatively weak. All right? In fact, the weakest. And of course, the answer to that is yes, because in other recoveries, we used far more stimulus and we were far more successful. And the Republicans blocked that stimulus. Unfortunately, it wasn't just the Republicans, because, of course, it was famously the revolt of the Blue Dog Democrats, the conservative Democrats, that caused the stimulus bill to be dramatically reduced. But it was also President Obama who infamously said in a State of the Union address, you know, in a recession, everybody has to tighten their belt, and so must government. Now, that's 12th rate economist stuff, which he knew to be a lie. And so it was just a pure political statement. But that's what's weak in the recovery. And the Democrats ought to be able to say in the election, what are you talking about? Of course it's a weaker recovery. It's because you clowns were blocking us. Unfortunately, there's a lot of dirty laundry on the Democratic side as well.
All right, Bill, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us on the Real News Network.
I was sold as a slave in Africa to an European. Oh yeah, I was bound in chains and taken beyond to the Caribbean. Oh yeah, new faces that I met, saying they are my master. Teach I to be like fools, Jaja just to cheat and rule. Use I for tools. It's a good thing I stick to your golden rule. I never miss a day in school. Teacher, she teach I to analyze. I invert my life situation. Then I really get to realize, say, a Rasta man first brings civilization on ya. Right, yeah, Rasta civilize ya. On ya. Israel, your history say, from 1655, we have been working on the same plantation, taught in the same recitation, saying, Jaja is loving and who don't love him never know Jah. Oh no, they never know Jah.
Xylophone. 10 years old.
Loving you is easy 'cause you're beautiful, and making love with you is all I wanna do. And loving you is more than just a dream come true, and everything that I do is out of loving you. No one else can make me feel the colors that you bring. Stay with me while we grow, and we will live each day in springtime. 'Cause loving you has made my life so beautiful, and every day of my life is filled with loving you. And baby, loving you, I see your soul come shining through. And every time that we, ooh, I'm more in love with you. Dun, 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 dun. No one else can make me feel the colors that you bring. Stay with me while we grow, and we will live each day in springtime. 'Cause loving you has made my life so beautiful, and every day of my life is filled with loving you. And baby, loving you, I see your soul come shining through. And every time that we, ooh, I'm more in love with you. Well, stand by me, yeah. Stick by me, and I'll stick by you. Stick by me, and I'll stick by you. For and have you to stick by me. I love you, darling, and that's no lie. Oh, oh, stick by me, and I'll stick by you. When you cry, I'll cry too. Oh, oh, stick by me, and I'll stick by you. Remember, my heart and my love belongs to you. Oh, oh, stick by me, and I'll stick by you. Friends may try to hurt us, scandalize our name. No one can tear us apart. You got a place in my heart. Well, well, I love you, darling, and that's no lie. Oh, oh, stick by me, and I'll stick by you. Friends may try to hurt us, scandalize our name. No one can tear us apart. You got a place in my heart. Oh yes, I love you, darling, and that's no lie. Oh, oh, stick by me, and I'll stick by you. When you cry, I'll cry too. Oh, oh, stick by me, and I'll stick by you. Remember, my heart and my love belongs to you. Oh, oh, stick by me, and I'll stick by you. Stick by me, and I'll stick by you. Tell you now, just stick by me, and I'll stick by you. Well, stick by me now. Stick by me, and I'll stick by you. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Stick by me, and I'll stick by you. Just stick by me. Stick by me, yeah, and I'll stick by you. Stick by me, and I'll stick by you. Stick by me, and I'll stick by you. Stick by me, and I'll stick by you.
What's happening? Who's outside? What are they trying to do? Do you want to go out there?
No.
You're not going to get shot at all, you hear me? Smith, get EMS and her out. We got a car, it's flipped over, smoking. She's trying to get that gun out. Rifle! The rifle out of his lock back there. Smith, be biased. We got one tag. Smith, get EMS and her out. We got a car, it's flipped over.
silver and gold, diamonds and pearls, things of such. Them not ready, them not ready. Bleach your skin, them not ready. Feel face, them not ready. Ready, them not ready. And them not ready, them not ready. Bleach your skin, them not ready. Feel face, them not ready. Ready, them not ready. Field marshal, the fire red that and lava. Thin skin, Panama, field drama. Without your melanin, the black ink in your skin. If sun fit touch your skin turn pink. The food for plants, me say you can't be no farmer. For months and days, you're in the same pajama. More time, them no be just use a rock and wipe them face and come a road. Corner, them not ready. Bleach your skin, them not ready. Feel face, them not ready. Ready, them not ready. And them not ready, them not ready. Bleach your skin, them not ready. Feel face, them not ready. Ready, them not ready. Them not ready, them not ready. Them say them not bleach and stop. Say them off it. Preach man spot. All when them face lean and crack. Me see them till I rub the cream pan that. Them say them not bleach and stop. Say them off it. Preach man spot. All when them face lean and crack. Me see them till I rub the cream pan that. Inna them bleach socks. Them bleach clothes and hats. And then them come up both. Say them neat and hot. In a labrish be a chat. More time them come a road and all them face in no wash. Them bleach socks, them bleach clothes and hats. And then them come a boat, say them neat and hot. People business and be a chat. Say them off a well bro, Snapchat. Them not ready, them not ready.
Them not ready. Shanty Q from out of Bull Bay. One yellow field marshal, you know, Kwame Mani and the whole crew. Yeah. All right. We have a special interview now. You know, we have one of the special guests on our Garvey Celebrations Day. Attorney at law, Hashim Nzinga, member of the Black Lawyers for Justice. As we said, one of the guest speaker at IRFM's tribute to Marcus Garvey on August 21. Right here in IRFM's courtyard. He'll speak on a call for cultural, political, and economic self-determination. I guess he's online now. Hello, good afternoon.
Hey, Black Power, how are you?
Black Power, straight. We are fine. You know, how are you?
I couldn't be better. I'm on Marcus Garvey's spiritual waves. We are lovers of the Honorable Marcus Garvey, and just to be able to be in Jamaica when you're celebrating your great hero legacy is just an honor, and we totally understand.
Yeah. All right.
One God, and we understand the one destiny.
One God, one aim, one destiny. What does Marcus Garvey mean to you generally, though?
He means everything to us, because us who know and live and understand Marcus Garvey was the first one to come to the American shores and make us understand what true political revolution was, and what true revolution was to Marcus Garvey, was having your own nation. And Marcus Garvey brought us the red, the black, and the green, because every nation has its own flag. And for the slaves in America under the NAACP and W. Du Bois and such leaders of that time that were so passive, Marcus Garvey came into America like a lightning rod, and anybody who knows history, when he arrived in 1916, first thing he did was got Liberty Hall, which holds over 6,000 people in Harlem, and he went to teaching. And once the UNIA got up and going, he had over 2 million members, as you know, by 1919. By 1923, the brother had 6 million members of his organization, 700 branches in 38 states, and he was preaching revolution, he was preaching self-determination, and he was already on the stock market, and he was teaching us self-determination. He was teaching us Africa for Africa, Asia for Asia, Europe for Europeans. He was teaching us the oneness of ourselves, and they couldn't handle Marcus Garvey because, as you know, in his younger days, he was a printer and he worked in publishing companies. And he established a way to communicate with people through newspapers, and back then that was the way to communicate. And he just understood how white people use the New York Times, the L.A. Times, and the different ways of newspapers traveling all over the world. Garvey got his word out, and really there was a lot of blacks that destroyed his movement. W. Du Bois and some of them were just jealous of him.
Yeah. What would you say are some of the important Garvey philosophies that stand out to you the most?
Well, one of the things I love that Garvey did, he didn't just talk, of course. One of the things Garvey did is he started a nation in Liberia, and blacks, actually Africans, ex-slaves, actually started leaving America, going back to Africa. And that was Marcus Garvey's thing, to go back to Africa. And people don't know that he really started he really set up a place, and Africans went back to Africa. And that was the first time we went back to Africa in Liberia, even though he didn't get to go. You know, and with J. Edgar Hoover, which we call J. Edgar Hoover, the FBI director, got with some people and, of course, railroaded him into the penitentiary. And but he was, you know, to answer your question, who would think in the early 1920s a black man owned a Black Star Line and was buying ships, multi-million-dollar ships in 1922? He had already started buying ships. Who would think that a black man in America was lining up brothers in military uniforms? See, the NAACP used to march through Harlem all the time in 1919, 1916. But when Garvey movement started, by 1924, Marcus Garvey was marching black men in military uniforms through Harlem, and he started the Black Cross with the sisters. We had never seen our own military formation. Every military suit the black man in America had put on, it belonged to the white man, and it was representing the white man. Garvey made us have our own nation within a nation, our own flag, our own military, and then put us on the stock market, because if you're going to have your own land and nation, you got to have finance. And he understood. He was a complete package. He was an intellectual. He could write. He understood nationhood and nation building. He understood you have to have a military to protect your nation. He got on the stock market because he understood none of that could exist without us putting our money together. And right now, black people in America spend $1 trillion a year on nothing. And if Garvey was still here, or we would follow his philosophy, we would own the world.
How has the teachings of Garvey influenced your movement in particular?
Well, the New Black Panther Party, which was under the leadership of Dr. Khalid Muhammad, and at one time Attorney Malik Shabazz, completely structured the New Black Panther Party under Garvey. What people don't understand, and when you understand history, you understand everything. When you talk about something powerful in America, you talk about Minister Louis Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam. Well, if you talk about his teacher, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and Farad Muhammad, you would have to go back to Marcus Garvey, because in the early 20s, Marcus Garvey in Detroit gave the Honorable Elijah Muhammad his first mosque and his first place to teach from. And Marcus Garvey had a platform, and the Nation of Islam took on a 10-point platform from Garvey. And then the original Panther parties in the 60s took that platform from Malcolm X. And then the New Black Panther Party, which I'm the chairman of the New Black Panther Party. I am part of Black Lawyers for Justice, but Attorney Malik Shabazz is the CEO of Black Lawyers for Justice. I'm the national chairman of the New Black Panther Party. And the national and the New Black Panther Party is under a 10-point platform that came from the original Panther Party, which it all leads back to the Honorable Messiah, Marcus Garvey. So we stand, our 10-point platform stands because of his language.
Okay, as we wrap up, what can the Jamaican audience expect from you on August 21 as our guest speaker?
Well, we're going to be sticking with the program of breaking the cycle of mental control, and the only way you can break the cycle of mental control is you have to turn off the white man TV, turn off the white man radio, turn off the white man culture, and you have to bring your culture to the front and your teachers to the front, and you have to spend your money with your people, and we have to unite the Africans here, 50 million, and the Africans in Jamaica, and the Africans in Bahamas, and the Africans in Haiti, and the 54 nations of Africa and Brazil. We have to have one African, one aim, as we talked about earlier. Well, one God, one aim, and one destiny, and that's what we're going to talk about. And that's how you break the mental control, because they want to think that the white man is the majority on the earth. He's not even 8%. We have to join together and be Africans again.
All right, a pleasure speaking with you. We'll certainly see you on August 21. And do have a safe flight come down, and we'll catch up then, all right?
We're looking forward to being in Jamaica. Thank you.
All right.
In London, this is The Economist. When criminals are heavily armed, the police understandably want to be heavily armed too to protect themselves. But there's been a huge rise in the number of SWAT raids in recent years, and some say it's gone too far. I'm Robert Guest, The Economist's US editor, and I'm joined on the line by John Fassman, our correspondent in Atlanta. John, can you explain to our foreign listeners exactly what a SWAT team is?
SWAT stands for Special Weapons and Tactics, and it refers to paramilitary units of police forces. These are policemen who carry military-grade weapons, assault rifles and things like that, often travel in armored personnel carriers. And it was created, the first SWAT team was created in Los Angeles in the late 1960s to respond to violent civil unrest. And the idea was that police needed a unit that could respond to situations, hostage situations, people barricaded in buildings, that could respond with overwhelming force. The problem is that we've gone from having a few hundred raids a year in the 1970s to about 100 a day. And most of these are not in response to life-threatening situations. Most of these are drug warrants being served on private residences.
So you mean it's not that the suspected criminal in the house has threatened to kill anyone or is known to be violent, but simply that the police wish to serve a warrant on him and they choose to do it by sending in a heavily armed SWAT team. Is that right?
Right. You have a warrant that says, this person may have a half dozen marijuana plants in his basement. And so instead of sending 2 or 4 police officers, you send a 16-person SWAT team in an armored personnel carrier. And they serve the warrants usually very early in the morning. Often they'll bang down the door and throw in a flashbang grenade, which is designed to blind and deafen the people inside. Radley Balco, who has released a book on police militarization called Rise of the Warrior Cop, has counted 50 innocent people killed in botched SWAT raids.
Apart from serving drug warrants, what else are these SWAT raids used for?
Well, there's been a tremendous amount of mission creep. Police in Baltimore, Dallas, and South Carolina have all used SWAT units to break up poker games because the poker games are illegal. In 2006, immigration police, wearing full riot gear and heavily armed, arrested 6 Tibetan Buddhist monks in Nebraska who had overstayed their visa. In 2011, heavily armed police raided barbershops near Orlando, Florida, and arrested 34 people for barbering without licenses. SWAT teams have been sent to raid bars suspected of serving alcohol to underage patrons. And in Arlington, Texas, they were sent essentially to enforce code compliance on an organic farm that had left messy stuff in their yard.
That's incredible. What's causing this mission creep? Why have SWAT tactics spread so far from their original purpose?
Let's first establish they have not spread in response to a rise in crime. They have ballooned between 1980 and 2007, and during that time, violent crime has fallen in the United States. The reason they seem to have risen is simply because there are more SWAT teams now than there were. Now a majority not only of big cities have SWAT teams, but a majority of towns with populations under 50,000 have their own SWAT teams or are part of a sort of joint municipal SWAT force that exists in their area and can be called out.
Has the enormous rise in spending on Homeland Security since 9/11 played a role?
Yes. Senator Tom Coburn from Oklahoma released a report in 2012 that said that between 2001 and 2011, the Department of Homeland Security has spent over $35 billion on grants to state and local police departments.
And what's the money been spent on?
Well, it's been spent on a lot of things. It's been spent on, body armor. It's been spent on computers. It's been spent on technical equipment. A lot of it has been spent on weapons and military-type toys of really dubious need. There's a town in New Hampshire called Keene, which has averaged fewer than 2 homicides a year going back to the early 90s, and they spent $285,000 on a Bearcat, which is an armored personnel carrier with a turret that their police chief said they needed to guard their pumpkin festival and other dangerous events.
I remember interviewing a policeman once who had been head of a SWAT team, and he told me that his time running a SWAT team was the most enjoyable time of his life. And while obviously one would like people to enjoy their jobs, this did strike me as a little bit worrying. SWAT tactics are the sorts of things that one would hope are being used in extreme circumstances, not just because they're fun. How much oversight is there over the expansion of SWAT tactics?
There's no national reporting requirement. There are certain states that have started doing some very promising things. In 2009, Maryland's Governor Martin O'Malley signed into law a bill requiring police departments in the state to report twice a year on SWAT deployments, and they have to report how often they were deployed and for what reasons. Now, the hope behind this bill, I think, was that as people saw how often SWAT teams were deployed and for what reason, that there would be public pressure to bring down the number of deployments and to really get back to the original mission of SWAT. Unfortunately, so far that has not been the case. The numbers have stayed pretty steady. The important thing to remember is that this is not an argument that SWAT should be disbanded or that police shouldn't have SWAT teams. Police need SWAT teams. When there is a life-threatening situation, you want police to be able to guard the public and to be able to go in with overwhelming force. But you also want individual police departments to think very carefully about what the mission of police is. And the concern is that as police sort of tend to get more militarized, policemen start behaving more like soldiers. And you've got to remember that the mission of those two groups are completely different. The mission of a police officer is to protect and serve the community in which he, I hope, lives, or at least lives near. The mission of a soldier going into battle is to annihilate an enemy. And the more police act like soldiers, the worse it is for American civil liberties.
Thanks very much, John. That was John Fassman, our Atlantic correspondent. In London, this is The Economist.
The Economist.
Pioneers were sent to Liberia to establish a giant state in terms of the rubber industry. And things were progressing smoothly until the intervention of you know who already, Uncle Sam. Yeah. And where is Liberia today? Where is Liberia today? Liberia remains underdeveloped as what Europe would have done to all African nations for the past 500 years. But Liberia was one of those free countries at the time where, potential to be an economic zone and base for the African race. But as usual, as soon as you make a move, there comes something, some system to mash it up. And where's Liberia today? Nowhere. Yet, still, that country continues to be exploited as all other African countries. Why we can't exploit things for ourselves? Why we can't wake up people? Why? It's a serious thing, I'm there and I said, sure, you're there on the radio attack, but, we're in a serious state and we need, as Garvey said, one of the greatest things or one of the worst things that have happened to us over the past couple centuries is lack of unity. We unite for go to church, yes, but we unite to discuss our problems, our issues. We unite to come together to build back or to return to where we were as the creators of civilization. When we were trying to get back our satellites up in the sky and trying to have our own communication network there comes the system to continue to keep us apart. And we use the analogy of the Willie Lynch syndrome, which that is a debate, but we know that is for another day. But the syndrome is we use for self, amongst ourselves, we keep down one another. And we have that up to this day.
Then just remember Marcus Garvey. Then just remember Marcus. Then just remember Marcus Garvey. Then just remember Marcus. A long time Garvey did a one them. A long time. A long time Garvey did a one them. A long time. Them feeling the squeeze and can't get no ease. Sold out Marcus with rice and peas. Here in Jamaica he passed to hell. Only the black man story he tell. All because they didn't receive him well. Now their back is against the wall. And they're about to fall. And Marcus made them start to call. Then just remember Marcus Garvey. Then just remember old Marcus. Then just remember Marcus Garvey. Then just remember old Marcus. What a shame. What a shame. Sold out Marcus with rice and peas. 100 nut and a tin of beef. Then treat him as I like a thief. What a shame. Then just remember Marcus Garvey. Then just remember old Marcus. Then just remember Marcus Garvey. Then just remember old Marcus. What a shame. What a shame. Then just remember Marcus. Then just remember old Marcus. Then just remember Marcus. Then just remember old Marcus. Feeling the squeeze and can't get no ease. Sold out Marcus with rice and peas. 100 nut and a piece of me. Now they keep up the street in peace. Back against the wall. And they're about to fall. And Marcus name they start to call. Then just remember Marcus Garvey. Then just remember old Marcus. Then just remember Marcus Garvey. Then just remember old Marcus. What a shame. What a shame. They never know a good man till prophecy start to reveal. I know history's no mystery. Marcus word they are prophecy. Marcus word them a feel. Prophecy are revealed. I can hear them a squeal. Just remember Marcus Garvey. Just remember old Marcus. Just remember Marcus Garvey. Just remember old Marcus. What a shame, 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 shame.
But I've got to mention the recommendations at least, because we have to move beyond analysis. So let me quickly just run through these. Pardon me if I'm going fast here. If this is a climogenic society, and it is, then we recognize as African people that our major problem is not being left out of the American mainstream and being left out of the system. We must recognize that we cannot join a criminal system because we will become criminals in it. Golden Power represents the apotheosis, the ultimate of what a criminal system is. He represent what it means to move up in a criminal society. In moving into that system and becoming integrated in it and assimilated with it, he must now become allied with this criminality. And if that system then is dependent upon the death and damnation of black people, upon the imperial subordination of black people, then those like Colin Powell that move up in this system must also then engage in the death and damnation of black people as well. We have to keep that in mind. You're not moving up into this system as it is unless you're also moving against the interests of black people. And therefore you have to recognize that the goal of our people in this crimogenic society is to change the very nature of the social system, to tear it apart and to reconstruct it, to bring into being that word that Bush stole from us, a new world order. Our mission is much higher than assimilating into this system. It must be to create a new world. If this crimogenic society creates a sense of powerlessness in our children, then we must, as a people, develop and use our power. We must take power and train our youth for taking and expressing power positively. If this system destroys the attitudes of our people through projection and projecting on them criminality, we must inoculate our children against evil white projections by inoculating them with truth and the truth of themselves, inoculating them with self-knowledge. We must inoculate them against projection and the internalization of negative attitudes by getting them into the knowledge and the psychology and the ways of their white enemies, and getting them to have an efficient perception of reality and remove their deceptions. If they are alienated from themselves and are infused by an evil white spirit who is implanted in their minds and bodies to serve the will of its devilish masters, then we must reclaim our African-centered identity, and we must reclaim an African-centered consciousness, and we must learn to love ourselves and love each other and engage in cooperation and communalism. This is how we prevent alienation. If the society twists our desires and makes us desire the things that destroy us and hate the things that advance our interests, we must learn a new set of values, inculcate deep and abiding cultural goals, learn to discern when one is being manipulated and exploited. Our children must learn the mechanisms of advertising, mass hypnosis, subliminal suggestion, conditioning, and lies and propaganda. They must learn to be productive so that they can produce for their own desires. They must learn to assume the ownership of the means of production and learn self-control. If the society moves our children into black-on-black violence because it engages them in frustration and the dealing with their frustration in incorrect ways, then we must train our children to be task-oriented, to solve the causes of problems and not engage in dealing with the symptoms of problems. We must teach them to discern the sources of their frustration and remove those sources and tear them out from the root. We must teach them how to use their anger and aggressive feelings positively. Every emotion that is in the human mind is there for a positive reason, and they must be used for positive reasons. Anger is a positive emotion if it is used correctly. So is aggression. God did not put anger and aggression in you just for negative purposes alone, but we must be taught how to use those things. We must teach them to be resourceful and how to get around those frustrations, to develop social intelligence, skills, and competence. We must teach them coping strategies for stress. If they displace their anger and use their anger to attack themselves and destroy themselves and to destroy others like themselves, we must get them to know their real enemy. We must get them to recognize that this enemy, this white man, is only a man, that he bleeds and dies like any other man. We must read to him the history of our African fathers as they cut down and mowed down the white man, and how they were only betrayed by their own cupidity. We must have them understand that. Let them read the story of the Egyptians as they the Ethiopians as they cut down the Italian armies, and read the stories of the other Africans as they cut down the white armies. Bush thinks he's gotten away with this little game, but it's not over. It's not over. By the very fact that he engaged in this war, we now know what his game plan is. We now know his weaknesses and his strengths. As a matter of fact, ladies and gentlemen, his strength is his weakness. Understand? And we're going to teach our children how to tear up the soft underbelly of this dragon and this monster called white America. I was down at Tuskegee last weekend, and I saw the Chappie James Aerospace Center. Interesting. But one thing we've learned about this war here is that once we get an Air Force, we're ready. And so we're going to set him up. The only thing that got this man across was he was not resisted in the air. And we will meet him in the air and on the ground. Recognize that the white man can be defeated, that he's not invincible. We must teach them that the displacement of anger at self or at others like at ourselves makes matters worse and is self-destructive. If they are having problems with their self-concept, then we must give them great support. We must affirm them and affirm their identity. We must teach them confirmations so that they know how to make positive statements to themselves and affirm themselves. We must teach them how to stop negative thoughts and change the nature of the situation that they are in. If they are engaged in violence and black upon black violence, we must teach them how to resolve conflicts between themselves without destroying themselves. It means then that we have to develop relevant educational programs. We have to develop a parallel school system. We have to make this government, by hook or crook, fund the health care systems of the local and state localities of our people. We must emphasize prevention in the black community, change the lifestyles of our people who are literally eating themselves to death, or whose lifestyles are literally destroying their health. My next book is going to be on black health, by the way, and I'm going to show how the death wishes, how we carry out the death wishes of whites through our eating and health habits. Because they wish that we will die, we accommodate them by drinking too much Pepsi and all the other things. We're going to emphasize critical problems. We must develop programs to ensure adequate prenatal counseling and care. We must develop systems to neutralize the crimogenic system. We must set it our goal, not the assimilation to the society, but the elimination of this society as it is. We must set as our goal economic development, the development of the economic status of our people across this world. We must engage in the development of a nation within a nation. How can a people keep saying that they are kept out of the society and are separated and segregated from the society and not use that to their advantage and create a nation within a nation and get ready to fight the other evil nation in the society? We must engage our people in consumer education, withdraw from those entities and those industrial systems and so forth that are a part and parcel of the destruction of the black community and the communities of Africans. We have to stop buying those Nike sneakers and Reebok sneakers that sell 70% of their wares to black people while they refuse to even franchise black stores to sell those sneakers. We must stop buying Ford Motor Company cars when they take out those car factories from Detroit and import them into Polish and other neighborhoods. And after we get through with Ford, we stop buying GM. And after we get through with GM, we stop buying Toyota and the rest. We will not subsidize the destruction of our people. We must develop an African-centered, full African-centered educational program. We must educate our males. It is very important that we pull these males aside and train them for manhood, train them for husbandhood and fatherhood, and train them for the military so that they undertake the overthrow of the system. We must engage our young people in political education so that they will learn how to engage in the political overthrow of their enemies and organize themselves politically. We must train those of us who want to go into this church into a new theology, that it is not enough to paint, the face of Jesus or to paint the face of angels and still believe in the same Eurocentric ideology and theology. We must go into these prisons and take our men from these prisons. These are the men who must be used to defend our community. They must be rehabilitated on the lines of an African-centered philosophy and on political lines and military lines so that they can use their aggression now, not against themselves or against the nation of African people, but against the true enemies of African people, the white man. We must develop regional conferences in our nation within a nation and a national congress so that we can coordinate and facilitate the talents of our people who are engaged in various aspects of the political, social, and economic reorganization of this country. We must build schools for leadership. We must build schools that engage in policy development and analysis, and schools for developing strategy, schools for developing a military machine to protect us against the interests of Europeans. Recognize that there's one thing that's clear, that the imperialistic system has only one constant, and that is self-interest. And when it is in its self-interest to destroy and wipe black people from the face of this earth, it will engage in that activity. You have the history of the Indians in America to show that when a people are economically not useful to the Europeans proceed to annihilate those people. Therefore, ladies and gentlemen, we must prepare for revolution and prepare for war. Thank you very much.
This is a stepping racer. Hello.
Hello. Good
Greetings.
afternoon, my brother.
Good afternoon to you too.
I was preparing to listen to Muta today, but brother, I don't miss Muta. Honestly, I don't. You have stepped up the pace. You have stepped it up. Anyway, there are a few little things I want to say.
All right, sir.
You see the brothers born in the 50s, people born in the 50s.
Yeah, there's a terminology where say baby boomers.
Baby boomers.
Yeah, that's a terminology when we grow up in here. People who born from the 40s come up to around the 70s or 80s. Or
Right.
Yeah.
The thing is that we were told a lot of lies.
Yes.
Even now,
Yeah.
Santa Claus, if you imagine our parents at the time, work hard to give you a gift.
Yeah.
And when Christmas come, they make you put up stocking.
Yes.
And give the credit to this big fat white man. And then buy things for you.
Yes.
Until Santa give it to you.
Yeah, man. Part of the own brainwashing thing where
that is true.
Keep us back. Yeah.
And another thing, black people must take them out of the white man kitchen. We eat too much of the white man things that are not good for us.
Yeah.
And I just made some little jockings and some little things I want to highlight.
Yeah.
There was one brother that said, show me your women and I'll tell you what kind of country you have. And if you take our women the way they behave, everybody want to look white. It is astonishing, brother. One race of people have woolly kinky hair. It's either we're stupid or something is wrong with us. We are the only people that have ear texture like that. And most of our people want to change it. They want straight hair And they do not know that your ear is like your antenna. If your antenna flap, it can't take up no good signal. And all straight ear flap. Check it out. I'm not disrespecting anybody, but that's the way Earth is.
Yeah, man, we have to reconnect to who we really are as a people. And, you know, it's a struggle, it's a fight. Every day, it is in our society, as you start talking about black consciousness and blackness and your African roots, people ridicule you. So
yeah, brother, I get that a lot, man.
We still have a serious fight on our hands and a far way to go. But we still have a fight. We still have a fight as black
when it takes now,
yeah.
We send our children to the best schools we can.
Yes.
When they leave school, who are they building up? Themselves or who sent them to school? Because if you're in white man's school, all the people going up. Same teaching, we are ruled by the Westminster thing, everything, it's them. And what people not really seeing, when we talk about Marcus, it's just a joke. Politicians use it when they're ready. And the church use it when they're ready to, but not for the benefit of our people. I don't see it.
You're right.
And the other one,
yeah, you're right about that, man. You have to make a quick point here. Quick, lastly.
Yeah, the last one is religion.
Yeah.
That is the thing that all our people down, man. You imagine the slave master telling that Jesus will save you from cutting the cane line.
Yeah.
Brother.
Hey, one of the things, you know.
Here listening to you,
Yeah, one of the things, you know, is that you say the black people who they taught to be literate back in the 17th and 18th century, and make them read the Bible. It's certain verses them usually make them read, you know. Wash me and your sin shall be as white as snow, and slaves shall be obedient to their masters. Those verses in the Bible, those were the verses that the literate black people usually come to at Sunday daytime and tell the people them usually come church. So it's a thing will hold us back. It's a thing will hold us back, and we have a far way to go.
There was this book that I think a pastor wrote it. A pastor was saying, if you don't cut the white man, the queen's cane, you will go to hell.
Yeah.
That book was circulating a lot. I don't remember the title of the book. But
we have to run though. Yeah, but make your last point quick.
I was just saying religion. You recently understand that this is not in the Bible. Children shall be having sin. I'm trying to find it not there. It's a brother I heard on the radio, ridiculing the pastors to stop teaching things that are not there.
Yeah.
Like we're all born in sin. That is not in the Bible either. We were all born in sin and keeping iniquity.
Anyway, thanks, here.
And thanks for listening.
Yeah, man, and thanks for your compliments as well, all right? Yeah, man, this is a stepping razor. We're featuring the spirit of the Jamaican people when we just get independence.
My people, do you not want to go? My people, do you not want to go?
We're featuring the man Prince Buster. Yeah, Afro Funk.
It's unorthodox. Islam is not a racist religion. Even though all I see are doggone Arabs hanging up there in North Africa. And I don't see any equal sharing between African Africans and Arab Africans in the heart of Islam. I don't give a hoot what you say about how universal it is. Show it to me in practice. And I don't see it in practice. And you'll learn something very clear. These Europeans and these other groups are going to lay all kind of universal bullshit on your head as a way of maintaining you in slavery. Yes. In fact, the best way to enslave a Negro is to get him universal. Yeah. I'm for all people. That means he can't be for himself. He even feels guilty about being for himself. Yeah, you tell him, look, let's act in terms of who we are. Oh, no, I'm for all people. Which means I can't commit myself to what? To anyone else. But you see, when other people have already got the scheme set up, it does, what you're for all for doesn't work for all people, though. It seems to always go to what? Particular people. Because I've said, you see, we are absolutists. You see, we believe that if we know the truth and hear the truth, that's the only thing we must believe. And I've told you before, in terms of the Christian theology here, that Africans did not come to America as Christians. I don't care how much you shout and kick over benches. You got to understand that. Your African and our African ancestors did not come to America as what? Christians. And it's very important to recognize that. Does that impute Christianity? No, I'm not about attacking Christianity. I'm not about attacking the reality of Christ or your sincerity. This is not what this is about. You must, though, ask the question, who taught you Christianity? And why did they teach it to you? In other words, you must ask what? Functional questions. How does your teaching me this work for you? And how does it work for me? Even though what I believe you're saying is true and absolutely true, my believing it and your believing the same thing brings about what? Two different consequences. So while the principle you're teaching is universal and absolutely true, given the context in which this is operating, in the context of the fact that you have all the money and you have all the power, my believing this is going to what? Help you to do what? Maintain your money and your power and maintain my weakness. So you can't just fall for an idea simply because it's universal and absolutely true. You've got to look at it within the context in which that idea is being projected. And you got to look at it in terms of who is believing it, because the idea will generate effects based on the context in which it operates, not in and of itself. You see, and this is what has happened to black folk who've taken up other religions and had those other people say, you know, you just believe this, and this is true, this is universally true. This has nothing to do with race, and Islam is not a racist religion. That's fine when the Arabs own what? Everything. And that means then that I won't perceive the Arab as a race, right? Even though it was just by coincidence, all of his race owns everything, has everything. Then I'll be made to feel guilty for even thinking in terms of what? My race. Even though my children are going hungry, they're robbing me at night, terrorizing the community, and the whole bit, it's wrong for me to think of them as race and think in terms of them as a people and so forth, because I believe in this universal principle. And yet it is the inequality of wealth and the inequality of power and all kinds of inequalities that are what? Creating the problem. But because I am not allowed to see these inequalities in terms of race, you see, even though when we see the victims of them, the race is quite apparent, I cannot transform this situation. You got to be careful with this game, ladies and gentlemen, because this is the kind of game people run on you all the time. You see, whenever people bring you universal truths, whenever they bring you, you know, these great brotherhood ideas, you must ask yourself how believing this is going to function for you. And given your power, and given this or given this, how's it going to function for you and how's it going to function for me? These fighters went over the world talking about the invisible hand and the laissez-faire economy, you know. Or they come up with some stupidity like, we are all God's children, we are all one, we are all human. nationalism is wrong. We shouldn't discriminate according to border. People should be able to invest wherever they feel like investing, you know, and people should take advantage of opportunities wherever they arise. Now that sounds so nice and neat, doesn't it? And it is. I have no problem with that. Except, though, you got to move beyond that. You got to look at who's saying it, and if I believe it, what's going to happen? Now, the Europeans said this because they had all the what? The money. You see? So when they convinced our people to believe in free markets and open markets and reject nationalism, we all got children, we all won, and therefore all markets should be open for investment regardless as to who you invest. The deal is, if they had all the money, they're going to end up owning all the land. They're going to end up owning all of the means of production with your consent, with your moral consent. You see? And then you're going to wonder if God is cursing you. If something is wrong. You have to understand, then you can't just let people lay an idea on you, a universal concept, a universal religion, and a universal this, and then assume that all is well. You got to look at reality. So if it's so damn universal, spread that damn money around.
Hello? Hello?
Hey, Roger, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, man.
Discussion. How are you doing today?
All right, you know.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I love the reasoning where you come from still, but just I beg the item for look into it. Says a whole lot of things set up in our part. That's why we can't get the unity straight, you know, because them studying it, you know.
Yeah. Part of the underdevelopment, you know. Part of the force underdevelopment for us as a people.
Yeah, them force it, and each time we pull out to kind of unite ourselves. The people them are hear the thing, you know, but as soon as them push out to do it, they murder the leaders.
Yeah.
You see what I mean?
Yeah,
they murder the leaders up front, and then
or you marginalize them.
You know, with a little corruption thing, you know, but
yeah,
but I don't straight say we love how you deal with it and things.
Yeah, man, give thanks to the kind words, you know.
Yeah, man, blessings.
Bless
all right,
yourself.
take care of yourself.
All right, man.
It's not enough for us to show how we were decultured during the diaspora and slavery and so forth. It's very important for us to understand how we were recultured and reorganized. We are not uncultured simply because we don't have African culture. You see, we have been what? Recultured and rearranged and restructured. You see, and we must understand in depth how that restructuring took place and how it expresses itself in us and in the way we relate to each other. You see, because it is this reculturation ultimately that we must do what? We must reconstruct. We must tear down. We must remove outside of ourselves. So it's not enough to say what we have been missing as a people, or how African culture taken away from our people, but we must come to understand how we have been newly created by another people. And how does that new creation, under their power, represents itself in our personalities and in our social lives, in the way we think, in the way we behave, in the way we perceive the world, in the way we relate to each other, and the whole bit. Because it's with that understanding that you design an educational curriculum for African children. You see, you're not just going to teach them history and culture. You're not just going to raise their self-esteem. That's just the beginning. You got to say, because you can feel good and still be Eurocentric, you know. And you can have high self-esteem and still be Eurocentric as well, you know. Yeah, so there's a whole nother process going on. This is why the multicultural curriculum is not sufficient. It is not just a matter of teaching us to respect other people's culture and to look at and accept cultural differences. African people are in a process of reculturation and a process of reconstruction as a people. You see, it's not a situation of where the Chinese say, well, you didn't teach my culture in the schools, even though my culture has maintained continuity for the last 10,000 years. You see, And even though I still speak Chinese, I still eat Chinese food, I still buy from Chinese restaurants, I still do almost everything Chinese. Now I just want you to respect my culture. But that's not where the African people are. You have a cultural discontinuity. You have cultural trauma. Yes, you have a whole reconstruction to undergo. And therefore a little Pollyanna multicultural education cannot meet the needs of African people. Even African people on the continent are in a process of reconstruction and redesign. You understand? So no light course in dancing with other people and that kind of stuff is going to do what we need. Not at all. The reclamation of our male youth requires an appropriate, thorough, pragmatic, cultural analysis of the deculturation and reculturation of African Americans and their social products as represented by black male and female identities. How these identities, whether considered pro-social or anti-social. I've told you on other occasions that a great enemy to the black community is the good black person. Yes, is the law-abiding black person. Yes. Oh, yes. In fact, we're in this mess because of law-abiding, good black people. Yes. What did I tell you? These youngsters that you want to damn in so many ways did not create the world that they live in. They were born and they are reared in the world that we created. That adults created. They are not making the ghettos. They are not making the joblessness and unemployment. They are not making the poor schools and poor and miseducation. They are not doing and creating these things. It is who? Us, black adults, African adults. And to a great extent, it is us, law-abiding and good ones. It is us ones who don't see color. Yeah. It is us who want to be loved by Koreans, want to be loved by Arabs, want to have racial harmony, want peace between the sisters and the brothers all over this land. You have your mind. And yet you can't have peace in your own house. You can't have peace in your own neighborhood. You can't have peace in your own street. And it's just so Negroish. Really. He's going to solve the problem of all the people before he can solve his own. Yeah. He's going to have the great mosaic and he can't even get his own piece together. But this is the role the world has set for us so everybody can succor us, you see. Yeah, that's what all it's about. And what people in the world are going to have any confidence in your capacity to work for all men when you haven't demonstrated your capacity to do what? Work for yourself. I'm qualified to solve all men's problems. Solve your own problem, man. You haven't solved your problem yet. In fact, we don't need you to solve our problem. We're doing quite well. We're rich, we're powerful, we're in control, we got great armies, and you want to solve our problem? Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. But, again, what did I tell you? In order for us to be in the condition we're in, we have to be what? Backwards. We have to be completely returned around. And we have to go in the very opposite of the way we should go as people. We have to forget our first impulse and change this thing around a bit, you see. We must understand here, and it is the pro-social ones. They feel good. I can spend my money where I want to. But why do you only want to spend it with other people then? What is it? I live wherever I want to. Then why you want to live with only other people then? What is it? And watch the Negro, as I've said before. Yeah. I'm free to buy where I want to, but he never feels free enough to buy from himself. I'm free to live where I want to, and he thinks that means he has to live in a white neighborhood. You see? I'm free to do this and free to do that. And each expression of his freedom requires that he gives up to someone else. The white man doesn't want to live in your neighborhood, but yet he doesn't feel like that's an infringement on his freedom. He doesn't buy from you. He doesn't feel that that's an infringement on his freedom. Doesn't live with you. Doesn't feel that's an infringement on his freedom. Doesn't go to school with you. Doesn't feel like that's an infringement on his freedom. You see, the Koreans the same way. In fact, they feel free the further they can get away. You see, but only the Negro, in trying to express his freedom, feels compelled to impose himself and his money and his wealth and his talents and everything else on outsiders and other people. Yes, backwards, turn around. And to do it for himself, he feels bad. He feels guilty. He suffers from a guilty conscience. He feels irreligious. But it has to be that way if we are to be what? Suckered and robbed as a people.
So the Supreme Court in Belize has ruled in a landmark case for the Caribbean community, CARICOM, that the country's law punishing homosexuality is unconstitutional. You hear that? The Supreme Court in Belize has ruled in a landmark case for the Caribbean community that the country's law punishing homosexuality is unconstitutional. The decision was handed down yesterday, 6 years after a gay citizen and advocate, 42-year-old Caleb Orozco, brought the challenge against the Attorney General. So the court's decision overturned Section 53 of the Belize Criminal Code that calls for a 10-year prison term for carnal intercourse against the order of nature. I repeat that. The court's decision overturned Section 53 of the Belize Criminal Code that calls for a 10-year prison term for carnal intercourse against the order of nature. Now, Caleb had argued that Section 53 breaches his right to human dignity protected by the Belize Constitution. He also contended that this section breaches his rights to privacy given under the Constitution because it criminalizes and stigmatizes consensual sexual activities between gay men, violating their right to give expression to their sexuality. Now, the decision, which could have persuasive effect on the entire region's jurisprudence, comes as a similar challenge is being mounted against Jamaica's offenses against the Person Act, which criminalizes anal sex. A victory for the Caribbean, Jamaican gay advocate and lawyer Maurice Tomlinson wrote on his Facebook page after the Belize Chief Justice handed down the decision. And Tomlinson, he's the one leading the challenge against the Jamaican law. So we're looking forward to that challenge. Meanwhile, the Belize case had implications for Jamaican professor and HIV expert Brendan Bain, whose testimony against striking down the law may have cost him his job at the University of the West Indies. The university fired Bain as head of the Caribbean HIV/AIDS regional training, saying stakeholders had lost confidence in him following his expert testimony. So we're in for some interesting times ahead where this burglary law thing is concerned in Jamaica in particular. We know it's a wider Caribbean thing, but Jamaica, and we know how we stay in this side of the world, yeah? We still say man and woman. And, well, law, you know. So they make the law now. So, interesting times.
There's nothing wrong with studying conspiracies. There's nothing wrong with studying other people's organizations. In the series I'm doing on power, that is exactly what I do. Much of the stuff that Brother Coakley deals with is dealt with as a part of my power series. Much of the information is public, actually. It's not really hidden and secret. If you have an interest in it, and that's your orientation, you can literally find it almost anywhere you want to. The important part, though, is just not naming it and pointing it out. At some point, it must be translated into a plan of action. It must become a part of the organization of the African American community. The understanding of how these other groups are working and other organizations must ultimately be built in to how we will design our organizations, how we will organize ourselves, how we then will use the strength that we already have to counter these organizations. The studies of these other organizations and so forth becomes a study in preparation for strategy. not just for naming, not just for passing on gossip, not just titillating people, but if this is the structure of the conspiracy against us, then the next issue becomes, what should be our strategy to remove this conspiracy, and what tactics should we use to destroy this conspiracy, given its design and its approach? But to merely point it out, to merely expose, and just leave it at that, really creates a problem. And ultimately, it can work against you. You can leave from one of those kind of lectures where, you find out all the inside dope, feeling morally superior to those people who are conspiring against you and how dirty and low down and, all that they are. But you would not be any better off in defending yourself against them. You will not in any way have developed further steps for strengthening yourself to defend yourself against them. We as a people must read also beyond our African-centered books. Some people are getting caught up in reading black-only books, or books written only by black authors. I warn you, that can limit your perception. We're writing as much as we can. Other people are writing as much as they can. But frankly speaking, the number of African-centered books written by African authors is still very narrow in terms of the kind of knowledge and information we need to have as a people. And consequently, then, we must integrate a lot of other knowledge from a lot of other sources into an African-centered program. I am concerned with Africanizing information. You can get information from anywhere and any place and anybody. It's not the source of the information that is of major importance. It is the question that you have in mind and the intentionality that you have in mind when you contact that information that is of importance. When you come with certain African-centered questions and certain African-centered intentions, you can subvert the intentions of other people. And even though they may have written lies, they may have written a book to falsify your image, with an African-centered question in your mind, and with an African-centered intentionality in your mind, you can still gain useful information from that. And you can turn then their intentions into something that works for you. So you just can't say, well, because it's written by a white man, I'm not going to read it. Or because, well, it's lying and they're intended to do. No, the fact that you know it's a lie is information. Now, why is it a lie? What is the end point of the lie? What is trying to be accomplished there? What is the technique of the lie? How is this hooked into propaganda? In what way is this group trying to transform my consciousness? What techniques and methods can I get from this to use against my enemies? What are their methods and techniques of propaganda that I can use to advance the propaganda for African people? Because see, our propaganda is not necessarily lies either, you know. And propaganda is not necessarily a negative term. That's right. Propaganda comes from the basic word to propagate, to move information, to communicate information, to persuade. And the methods of moving information and communicating information and of persuading people is not a science of Europeans only, not by any stretch of the imagination. We talk about culture as well, African culture, and yet we really we haven't, as far as I've seen, analyzed that concept very deeply. I'm not going to analyze it today, but we have not analyzed it as well as we should. What do we mean by that? Whose culture are we referring to? You know, when we say that word, are we trying to reintroduce Egyptian culture in America today? This is not Egypt. This is not 5,000 BC, 3,000 BC, or any other BC. This is not sub-Saharan Africa either. Now, what am I saying about that? Africa and our history and our African cultures are tremendously rich and have great deals to offer us. And we all feed from those cultures. But to a great extent, I think we are facing the reality that we have to synthesize all the goods in those cultures and create a new one. Even the cultures that you call traditional, if you really know the history of those cultures, are cultures that have evolved over time. They're not fixed at year one and have stayed at year one. And therefore now you figure if you recapture it, you've recaptured the essence of African culture, and this is what you're going to recapture, and this is where you're going to stay in the midst of this whole changing world. Even those cultures that we call ancient did what? Evolved and moved over time. So there's no reason for us today to believe that we have to stay stuck in time. We use and we take and we maintain the essence of those cultures, the central identity that those cultures provide us, the lessons that those cultures have taught us, and we conquer new ground. And we Africanize new territory. And it is the whole world that we can claim for Africa. The world that has gone in the past, we want to, but the world to come.
All right, this is a stepping racer. Hello.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Man from the east.
Straight, look to the east.
Straight to the east.
Look to the
Original
east.
Jatabi.
Yes, Jatabi.
Yeah, man. I love it, you know. I love how you keep up the thing, you know, see it?
Yeah, man. I do a little thing, you know.
Yes, man.
Yeah.
And me have to big up Muta still, you know.
And I must, man. The Honorable Muta Baroka.
Honorable, man. Honorable.
Yeah.
For real, because him suit special, you know.
I tell you can't with them Chris African suit.
Chris African suit, man. Yeah, man.
Yeah. So you said Jatabi.
Yeah, me know me boss. You see Winchester here.
Yeah.
We need some road on the bushes them from off of the light, because when the lightning lick and the tree them rub on the wire, dangerous thing happen, you know. So we'd have beg the man them to just sort it out for you know.
Who are you representative out the side? Who are you political?
I don't remember what him name, but we have to sort him out.
Yeah, now have to check him fast, you know.
Yes, man, because we need road to and more light, you know. Yeah, man, because the place them dark, and me I tell you say anything can't me, boss. So I go on, you know, because them man are not so perfect, you know.
Yeah.
You know, see it. Yeah, man.
We know it go, man.
Seeing?
Yes.
Because right now, we have too much things happening in the country here, sir. And we want better. Tell you the truth, my boss.
It's a call. Rallying call from...
Me have a little short time. Me have big up Eric Castle and Bongo Shaw, Bongo Yan. All the white horses, go them, Fire Lenche, Mama G, big up them people there. Seeing?
Yeah.
And big up Daphne from Winchester.
Yeah.
Big up Neville.
Yeah.
Big up Bobo from Winchester. You know, see it?
Yeah.
Yeah, man. And big up all yourself, Vivian, Tracy, all IRFM, seeing?
Yeah, man. So you said the whole of down at St. Thomas lot, you know?
You me them not show you, man. An original Tabi this, you know, so me have to have it locked, you know.
Yeah,
man. The man, them see and me are the man, you know. You know, see
man.
So you have to keep it up, you know, see
All right, sir.
Yeah, man.
Bless up yourself, Jatabi.
Highly, my brethren. And to the eye, saying?
All right, sir.
Aye.
Yeah, man.
The tradition is what you do. Yeah. And it's an insult as an African man to have Europeans talk about their great tradition. You may talk about your philosophy, but that's not your tradition. You may talk about your religion, but that's not your tradition. Or if it is your tradition, then no matter how beautiful it sounds, I must reject it because it enslaved me. It oppressed me, and the whole bit, you see. So, and I don't care how sweet it sounds, and how logically it is put together, or how literate it may be. The ultimate thing is, in what way does it express itself in relationship to me and my people? And if this is the outcome of European tradition, then that tradition must be rejected. You must understand, ladies and gentlemen, what Europeans call great tradition goes hand in hand with their capacity to kill. You know, the Germans, I couldn't understand. You know, we were the literary people and we were the, you know, this and that. But that's one of the reasons why you were able to kill the way you did. Because that was also in there as well. You look at Elijah Muhammad, a misunderstood person. Yeah, misunderstood. Because again, sometimes we're so right-brained, we let our dislike or disapproval of certain of his behaviors overshadow our capacity to see what gifts he brought us as a people, and to come to really understand what this man was about and the greatness of what he created in the Nation of Islam. Yeah. Because we let a series of events get to us so much, we want to throw the baby out with the wash water. You see. But what was he doing? He recognized, too, that cultural identity, religious identity, were as political as they were psychological, were as economical as they were psychological, you see. And he recognized then that he had to also change the taste of black people and change their what? Interests as well. Their emotions and their what? Feelings as well. And a part of that change was projection of the white man is demon mythology, which was very functional and real. But very functional. See, I've told you, a lot of people think, oh, well, that wasn't the truth. That wasn't the point. It wasn't the point. It amazes me now. You know, someone mentioned the Tuskegee experiments. These whites are going to tell all the truth now that they got the what? The world what? Wrapped up. But in wrapping it up, they projected the what? The myth. Because the myth, the major function of the myth is to organize people, to organize a people's perception of themselves, to give them a sense of destiny and commonality, to arrange their social relations in such a way so that they could achieve particular points and particular ends. And it's not that they didn't know that the Egyptians might have been African. It was in their literature. That's a lot of where we got it from, isn't it? But at the point where a mythology of Africans as being uncultured served to organize them and create a unity among themselves, and served to create a set of relations that permitted them to make a conquest of the globe, they projected that mythology. And it was a powerful one. Now that they think they have it made, they say, well, yeah, you were Egyptians, weren't you? Oh, yeah, we did give you TB down there. You know, what are you going to do about it? Oh, now we're becoming honest folk. You know, but what happened? No banks are changing hands. No means and ownership of production are changing hands. No real control of your destiny is changing hands. But you're multicultural now. We have greater understanding and truth. It's got to go deeper than that. You got to do more than tell the truth. You're going to reparate yourself. We're going to take these reparations from you. You can admit we're Egyptians if you want to, but that's not the end of it. No way. And we as black people can't fall for the okie doke. Oh, they say we're Egyptian. Ain't that wonderful? Oh, they're saying that we're this and we're that. Isn't that nice? Now, you see, because now we're moving toward multiculturalism, right? Suddenly we're going to see them all as nice and sweet and wonderful. But what? the actual power relations that run the world will do what? Be exactly what? The same. As a matter of fact, we will even support them now because we feel so good about ourselves. Elijah Muhammad then sought to change taste. So when he had you eating that bean pie, you see, it was a different kind of thing. And eating once a day, wearing a different type of clothes, you see. It was just not an imposition of tyranny. That's what the other people would like to tell you, even though they were tyrannizing you far worse than Elijah Muhammad was doing, if you want to call it that. But what? If we demonize the Europeans, we wean our people from the pursuit of things what? European. You see? If we then create new tastes and tastes for which we can produce, you see, now the person in pursuing their taste will produce for their own nation and economically what? Support the nation. In other words, your money follows your interests. Your money follows your tastes. Your money follows your what? Passions. And one of the major powers that this culture has is to create tastes, passions, and interests in African people. And this is what Eurocentric culture is about. The organizing of African tastes, interests, and passions, so that in our pursuit of those interests and passions, in our attempt to satisfy them, we carry the Europeans all of our money. And we impoverish ourselves looking for the better life and the better feeling. Therefore, the Europeans have all the products for which they've created a taste in us. And then other immigrants come in and get the products under their control. And we as African people then support and feed all of them while we starve our own children.
All right, so we're still featuring the Jamaican spirit of the 60s. Oh, the Jamaican people were expressing themselves and all. What they felt that something was in the making for them as a collective people. And this tune was one of, in fact, it is Jamaica's first big hit internationally. Millie Small.
My boy, you make my heart go giddy up. You are as sweet as candy. You're my sugar dandy. My boy, lollipop. Never, never leave me, because it would grieve me. My heart told me so. I love you, I love you, I love you so. But all I wanted to know, I need you, I need you, I need you so. And I never let you go. My boy lollipop, you make my heart go giddy up. You set the world on fire. You are my one desire. Oh, my lollipop.
White Americans have a criminal history. They have a criminal nation. The nation is built on criminality and murder and exploitation. It is a part of their collective psyche. The United States is a mafia government. No one has done more damage and degradation and murder, rape, and robbery than Europeans. Yes. Therefore, in order to escape confrontation with their true criminal nature, they must accuse others of being criminals. What we call projection. They must become obsessed with the criminality of other people. And black folk become those other people, you see. But as Clinton Cox say, you called the Indians savages so you could behave toward them what? Savagely. That's the function of stereotyping, you see. If I call you a criminal, then I can treat you what? Criminally. I don't owe you justice. In fact, shooting you in the street is justice. We know you are already a criminal. Why should we bother to take you to trial? Yes, that's what it is. We're doing a service. We're saving the taxpayers' money. What have we lost? A criminal? What are you complaining about? Yeah, this is the deal. What does it mean then? When you can become, then often people, in order to escape certain problems, become obsessed with other issues to the point where they don't have time or the energy or anything else to think about anything else. They don't see anything else. So I can forget my self-hatred. I can forget my self-alienation if I concentrate on how much I love myself. But this is a bad kind of love, you see. It's not the right kind of love. If I concentrate on what? How great I am. If I concentrate on making other people see what? How great I am. You see. And therefore, my 24 hours a day, I'm obsessed by projecting my what? Greatness. And I will, but that greatness is coming out of what? Hatred and inferiority. And since I'm greater than everyone else, I must make everyone else superior, in what? Inferior to me. In fact, I can only love people who attest to my superiority. I can only love a woman who 24 hours a day maintains my superior ego and states that she is in need of leadership and guidance. And I'm her leader. I may be emasculated in the world, but in my house, I'm the king. And at any moment she indicates that I have feet of clay, I shall use them to stomp her. Yeah, this is the kind of thing we have here. Yeah, and it goes the other way too. You know, make me a goddess and lay at my feet all kinds of sacrifices. Yeah, yeah, live through me. And any moment that you don't hold this up, I'm going to react with anger and call you all kinds of names and problems. That's the issue of narcissism. Then you have the phallic character, flaunts his masculinity through success at work or conquest over women, constantly seeking confirmation of his potency, identifies himself with his penis. Ultimately, though, ladies and gentlemen, this is a man who's afraid of castration, who really thinks his balls have already been cut out from under him. Therefore, he needs a constant confirmation that he has them. Kind of reminds me again of the black and white video. What was that boy trying to grab down there between his legs? What are so many black men grabbing that all the time out there? Yes, seeing if it's there. Yeah, where is it? In other words, then, that relationship can move into a master-slave kind of relationship. A relationship that tries to use and exploit other people. A relationship that, in a sense, duplicates the social relationship that the man has. Don't worry about it. It'll be all right. And then you have people then who have a problem with lovability and are in constant need of reassurance. So what does this all imply? We don't have time to go into it all. What does it all imply? What does it roll out to be? It means then that if we have to transform the relationship between black males and black females and transform the nature of black life, period, we must transform the American system itself. Yeah, you can't get around that. Oh yeah, we have to if we are going to say that living in America, being black in America, creates a good deal of the problems that we have, then we must change America as a part of changing what? The problems. Now, it doesn't mean that we focus outside of ourselves, because one of the best ways of changing America is by what means? Changing ourselves. I've told you before that we are not only the creation of whites, we also create them. That they cannot be what they are unless we are what we are. And therefore, if we engage in self-transformation, we engage in the transformation of the nation and ultimately in the transformation of the world. This is what I'm saying again about an African-centered education. That more deeply than all, in terms of an African-centric education, is that we are not creating a revolution in America as much as we are creating a revolution in ourselves. But that revolution in ourselves is a revolution in America. And that's why we look at ourselves and transform ourselves. It means then that we must gain a perception of what is real. Maladaptive behaviors flow from the inability to operate in terms of what is real in the world. Where are we as African people? What is our real history? What is the real nature of this social system? And how does that reality intrude into our lives? We must come to know ourselves. If we do not know ourselves, we lose control of ourselves. We don't know why and for what reason we behave as we do. We must exercise control over ourselves. We must come to esteem ourselves and accept ourselves. To a good extent, the problems that we talk about all the time are problems that flow from people avoiding themselves, escaping their real selves, and creating mechanisms and machinations to facilitate their escape from themselves, and using other people and abusing other people in their escape from self-acceptance, in their escape from their real African selves as a people. And therefore, if we're going to stop abusing and using other people and using them as objects and so forth, then we must come back into self-acceptance and come back into reality. We must gain the ability to form affectionate relationships. And ladies and gentlemen, the ability to love and how to love is taught. In this system, we are taught that it's something that occurs accidentally and spontaneously. That is not true. Even romantic love, with all of its shivers up and down your spine, and all of this business about you can't eat and you can't sleep and, you know, you toss and turn all night.
Yeah, man, that is Millie Small. That was Jamaica's first big international hit out of the ska era. Yeah. We're still taking your calls. Hello. Good afternoon.
Hello.
Yeah, man.
Good afternoon.
What a go on? Yeah, man, you're on, you know. You're
yeah,
live.
Okay, Roger.
Yes, sir.
Good afternoon, my brother.
Good afternoon, my brother. What go on?
Let me just tell the listeners that you're listening to Roger Hasford, pinch hitting for Muta Baruka on RFM, the program Stepping Razor. A ball in this, you know.
Yeah, man. You need to tape that, though. Huh? You need to send that as a special.
Okay, I could do that for you, my brother.
Yeah,
I could do that for you.
Yeah.
What's going on, brother? Every day I listen to you.
Yeah, man. Give thanks for the listening.
Yeah, hear me? Let me tell you this straight up. Right now, I used to think the boy Muta in a weird shoe, that's how big him foot is. But right now, you feel it proper. you feel it proper, my brother, you know? Listen, Roger, a lot of people don't realize, you know, that they hear you on the sports program, right?
Yeah.
And you give all those information and tidbits, and you're very versed in that field. But a lot of the people don't know that you're a radio presenter in your own right. And
Yeah.
quite eloquent, so you know your history, you know your thing, and it's not just you came from your father.
who was a virulent advocate for the black people, for black people in his days.
I want to tell you right now, I want to big him up in there, Atlanta, listen right now.
Yeah, man, let him know so we know, man. And a lot of people should know, say, it's not the sports. You come to the battlefield with your father, advocate for black people, right? So you know what you talk when you talk about Marcus and them people. A lot of people would realize that. But you pick up your father too, because you might want to all know about him.
Yeah, man.
Well, let me tell you, I actually knew his wife, who used to work at the Kingston Public Hospital in the accounts department, and I was an accountant in the accounts department at that time. That's how I get to know you.
Yeah.
You know, of you and know of Mr. Asphalt. But my brother, long time I say, boy, you go on good boss.
Yeah, man, we give thanks for your strength, man.
You carry the flag proper for Irie and for motor, you know what I mean? And I remember the days when we were running down south. But I love how you lift it up,
Yeah, man.
I love how you lift it up.
Yeah, man.
I don't know if you could have find the Mystic Revelation of Rastafari album when I always play about the middle passage and all them things. You don't have the album there. You know the album that
I have it, you know, but I don't have it near.
You don't have it near you. But you know that you know, it's appropriate. I like the Marcus Garvey theme thing and come in. Because you know, say, from until from turn on and hear you now.
Yeah.
It's my mind. So do I tell him to touch a tune there?
Yeah.
You know?
I'm going to try to man.
I have a whole thing to hold on, but I just want to make you know, so boy, I feel proud for those, and know, so boy, I love how you work. And when I listen to the sports thing all the while and I hear, I'm going to say some people don't know how powerful the youth is differently. Yeah, but them get a taste today.
We have a spirits that we visit with from time to time, you know, so.
Yeah, man, I get a taste and I feel good. We have a short, my brother.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, man. I'll just keep it up here.
Bless up yourself, man. Bless up yourself.
Yeah,
man. All right.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, respect.
I was doing a lecture here on self-hatred. And in the very first lecture, I dealt with the image of the blonde, blue-eyed Jesus. And I made the statement that you had to beware of a church such that when you walk into it, the first thing you see is a blonde, blue-eyed Jesus back behind the altar. That church is lying to you, and that church is going to have send you to hell. How did I say that? Because first of all, there's nowhere in the Bible that a description of that Jesus has ever been given. And secondly, that Bible strictly states that graven images should not be made, and it's done. And one minister jumped up offended because of that statement and took the statement personally. And I'm a minister in the such and such a church, and I took a course under Dr. Cone at Columbia University, and just laid it all out for me, and objected to it as if I were attacking the minister directly, when I was dealing with the concept, and I was dealing with the psychology of having gods painted in alien forms, and how that induces self-hatred and maintains self-hatred in the people. How praying to a white man is damaging to black people, and how thinking of God as a white man is damaging to black people. I'm dealing with the concept here. Yet she felt a need to defend what she thought of as herself and her profession. But in defending herself, she actually defended the system. She actually defended the status quo. And many of us then, as neurotics, you see, as we engage in our neurotic and maladjusted behavior and defend our egos and defend our vanities and defend our prides, actually support and hold up the system. Parent or justify the abusing family. And how we, in many instances, end up justifying a system that abuses us. Integration itself indicates that, wanting to live and be loved and lay around with people who destroyed us and enslaved us and given us the greatest pain in the world. Sometimes what we call in psychology the love of the aggressor. The people you want to love most are the people who've done the most damage to you. Unhealthy personalities cannot be created by healthy environments. Since the unhealth of an individual or group can result in the relative health, wealth, security, and power and sense of identity of another individual or group, then it serves the interests of the latter group. In other words, the unhealth of the black community serves the health and wealth of the white community. Just as the sickness of the drug addict serves the health and wealth of the pusher. So in a sense then, it becomes in the interest of the pusher to keep the addict, of course, addicted, even though he claims he's doing him a service and a favor. The latter group becomes dependent, that is the unhealthy group, comes to need the unhealthiness, and that is the dominant group really becomes dependent and comes to need the unhealthiness of the former. If the health of the former means a reduction in the dominance of the latter, then the latter resists the health of the former despite its pretensions to the contrary. In other words, when we even see assimilationism, we don't have time to talk about it here tonight, but in many ways assimilationism and integrationism is really another prompt for the maintenance of white power. And while we thought that we bought it in to a great extent, I would argue that to a good extent the white ruling class helped to push it as well, because it also helps to maintain the white ruling class in power. When you have a minority of people, such as the European, often in order to stay in power they must recruit from the very people they oppress. And therefore they will call up from those people certain talented people or other types who then will identify with their masters and help then to maintain the control over the masses. This often will be called integration and will often be called desegregation. But ultimately, if you look very closely, you'll notice one thing, that the real power relationship between those two groups has not changed. I talk about a number of things we call constants, that if we look closely in the relationship, at the relationship between Europeans and Africans, we will note that there are certain basic things that have not changed despite all of the other things we look at. Despite integrationism, despite political and social change, there are things that are still basically the same and have been the same for the last 400 years. The real power of black people, particularly if you talk about military power, has not changed fundamentally since the very time we met the European. You may find African countries now with jet planes and tanks that they've bought from Europeans, by the way, and still have yet to make. And you may think then that the Africans have entered into a modern era in warfare and so forth. But I would dare say that there's not a single African country that could really protect the interests of black people against European power, particularly as that power moves out into space and can rain down on the African continent bombs and laser weapons and other weapons of various types. And African countries having no anti-ballistic system, no Star Wars system, no system to fight war in space, is literally defenseless. And yet they may fly the latest American jets, and in the face of American and European war power, we are still ultimately defenseless. That has not changed fundamentally in 400 years, ladies and gentlemen. The European economic control of this globe fundamentally has not changed either. The European control of information has not changed fundamentally either. The European control of definition, the definition of reality, the definition of what is and is not, has not changed fundamentally either, and that has been the case for a long time. The European tendency to degrade things African has not changed as well. You may now have a degree in computer technology. You may now have a job that pays you $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 a year, but your fundamental relationship to the European has not changed one whit from the fundamental relationship between our African forefathers and his European slave master. For as you work your computers, you still work to the profits of Europeans. And so the fact that we've moved into the executive offices does not mean we've moved into power. does not mean that the fundamental power relationship between Europeans and Africans have changed one bit. As a matter of fact, the moving of blacks into the executive offices is an effort to maintain that power and to obscure that power behind a form of neocolonialism. I don't think it is an accident that the desegregation movement and the assimilationist movement in America parallel the neo-colonial movement in Africa. As I often tell my classes, you as black students are now being educated to put a black face on white power and to help deceive your people into thinking because you got a job, we have moved forward as a people. Let's then just take a quick look at the functions of maladjustment and why you cannot get blacks, why it is important that blacks never get out of their sickness. You ever wondered why the more social workers you produce, the crazier people get? The more psychologists you produce, the crazier people get? Have you ever wondered about that? I lost a job challenging whites about that. Why you, as a white man, whom these crazy people have permitted to be chairman of the Department of Predominantly Hispanic at Black College, why do you as a white man, continue to try to bring these psychologists in here when you know that this psychology is not doing the black and Hispanic community one whit of good? He could not disagree with that. How do you pretend to judge the qualifications of black people for teaching other black people and Hispanic teachers and Hispanic students when you admit every day in the New York educational system that you don't know how to educate black children? We have a group of people who lament about their inability to educate black children, how black children are so-called uncontrollable and ineducable and all of that, and yet they want to sit on a board and determine who is qualified and not qualified. We have this insult downtown where these white dogs are going to try to determine who should be the chancellor of New York City schools, and yet have admitted that they cannot educate black children. And we'll sit there and let them try to lay the foundations and tell us what the credentials of an educator is supposed to be. How do you qualify to tell us what the credentials of an educator is supposed to do? You have not demonstrated that you are capable of educating black people, but yet there are a lot of us who want to sit back and talk about standards and degrees and all this other nonsense that the people who clearly admitted that they failed have laid upon us. And yet we have a lot of this going on in the system. But this kind of stuff must happen if black people are to continue to be subordinated. How is it functional? The captive African maladjustment justifies European dominance and exploitation. Because we are crazy, because we are criminal, because we are addicts, because we are that, the Europeans have a right to put their police in our community. They have a right to run the welfare agencies that keep us crazy, by the way. They have a right to intrude into our cultural families and personal lives. Why? Because, you see, they are maladjusted. They have learning deficiencies. They have this and that. Therefore, we're coming in to help and treat them in some sort of way. We are bringing in foreign aid. We are calling on the IMF to study and regulate their national economies and so forth. So you will see the so-called sickness and dependency and lagging in development and all of these other kinds of things every day are justifications for the Europeans to intrude upon African life and seek to control that life. And when we accept their definitions, we accept their dominance. We ask for their dominance, and we see their dominance as some kind of aid to us. Yet when we look some 40 years later, we are in the same position or in a worse position than before. How do we solve it? Asking more of it.
Oh, Carolina. Hey, Carolina. The music, Carolina. You notice anytime you're there a party, you know, and this music can play, you know. When the people them a sing, it's always, they must say something else. When the song now say, you know, oh, Carolina. Oh, Carolina. Anytime you go party, listen to the people them what them a say. Yeah, but as I said, this is the music where I hear from good source so come down to me that this music was the music that break through Rastafari drumming into mainstream, both locally and internationally. Listen to the drumming of Count Azito.
We'll come back with our guest, Professor Amos Wilson, and the psychology of self-hatred among global African people. Our topic is the psychology of self-hatred among global African people. Our guest, Professor Amos Wilson, Professor of Psychology at the New York Institute of Technology and also at the College of New Rochelle. He's also author of the book, The Developmental Psychology of the Black Child. Professor Wilson, we had a guest who, or rather a caller just a few moments ago who raised an area with Skinner, I do believe.
Very, very important area, because the topic of what we call Skinnerian conditioning, instrumental conditioning, is a standard topic raised in psychology. The essence of Skinnerian conditioning, or sometimes SR psychology, particularly of Skinner's type, named after B.F. Skinner, Harvard professor, who didn't so much discover new principles as just codify ways of behaving and consequences that already existed. The essence of it is that behavior is controlled by its consequences. Okay. That behavior that brings good consequences tends to be repeated and increased in frequency and probability of occurrence. Behavior that's followed by negative consequences tend to be decreased or eliminated. And a very simple but very powerful principle, and that's really the essence of it. And conditioning involves, to a good extent, you see, manipulating reward and punishment in order to bring about particular changes in behavior, you see. And so it's a very, very important psychology that many black students are educated in and don't understand at all.
What's the twist on it in terms of self-hatred?
The twist is the essence of power. You see, at first, this psychology is often presented in terms of a rat. Okay, you put a rat in a box or in some condition, and if it behaves in a certain way, you give it something to eat, you give it something to drink. Okay, that's a reward. If it behaves in a way you don't want it to behave, you give it an electric shock, punish it, or don't give it food. So, of course, because it wants to eat, and of course you make sure you've starved it before you put it in to the system. So if it wants to eat and so forth, it eventually learns the relationship between certain behavior and certain consequences. So if by standing up on its two hind feet it gets fed, it will stand up on its two hind feet much more frequently than before the system was put into order, you see. So the rat is conditioned by living under those circumstances. The experimenter who has control of the rat, you see, can create certain behaviors or reinforce certain behaviors in the rat by determining which behaviors will be rewarded and which will be punished. Now, where black students are miseducated in these psychology classes is that often the lesson is left right there. Okay, and I use this experiment, as a matter of fact, to get people to understand the difference between equal education and a relevant education, of how a black student can be equally educated with a white student. They just learn the same thing and be made dumb by the same learning. Now, a black student and a white student can learn that principle in the same way, but it doesn't have the same effects. Because you can look at this relationship between the experimenter and this rat as a power relationship, as a political relationship, you see, which says this experimenter who has control of the rewards and punishments of this rat is able to create behavior in this rat as a result of having that power. You see, being that he has control over the rewards and punishment, he uses that control to condition the rat. And then when I move on from there, I ask my students then, who has control of the water that comes into your neighborhood? Who has control of the food, the control of the jobs, controls of the symbols of status, control of information, and we go on and on. Can't you see that you are the rat? You see, this is where you end when you're talking to black students. You don't end with the rat and the experimenter.
Right.
You see, and a black student who has not been taught that, who has not been taken to have that experiment moved out of its standard presentation into politics and into the reality of his life is miseducated, even though he's learning the same thing that the white student learned, you see. And this is why I try to get across to people. You must understand, having our people learn the same thing a white student learned is not going to get you out of your condition. Now then, you have to look up on then, if you look up on the Harlems, the Bed-Stuys, even whole nations where blacks live in the world today, they are boxes. And we are rats in them. And when you see the IMF and the United States banks and the other European countries manipulating reward and punishment, selling weapons and creating wars and doing all of these kinds of things, you have in principle the same thing, you see. And just as that rat's behavior is being created by the manipulation of reward and punishment, the behavior and attitudes of black people are being created by the control of Europeans of rewards and punishment. This is the essence of power. The essence of power is the ability to selectively reward and punish what you want. Now, how does this relate to self-hatred? I hate to hold your people up, but I just want to, because this is a vital topic in psychology, and black students should deal with this topic very thoroughly because there's deep implication. When this is talked about, often the black student identifies himself with the experimenter, and the experimenter is a white man. And it's when you identify with him because he's a human being, and the other thing is a rat. But when you identify with that experimenter, you're misidentifying yourself. You see, when the white student identifies himself with the experimenter, his identity is closer to reality, you see. And so in learning the same thing, his racial position is reinforced, even though it appears that he's getting the same education, you see. And people must learn the difference between so-called equal education. Getting equal education for black students is not getting them to learn the same thing white students are learning. And we're going to have to understand this. So then just as that conditioning situation presented by Skinner is what we call a rat in the box, the nations where our people's lives are controlled through the manipulation of Europeans is what we can call a nigger box. It is where Africans are created into niggers as a result of the manipulation of reward and punishment by Europeans. We have to keep that in mind. How do you create self-hatred then? Certain of that rat's behavior is associated with reward, with pleasure, with good feelings, with security, with love, if you want to call it that, you see. So whenever he performs that, he moves toward that behavior, and he emits that behavior because it brings those rewards. Or he emits that behavior because it helps him to escape from pain, from hunger, from fear, from insecurity. You see, and that's another method used in these Skinner boxes, you see, of where if we don't reward the animal, we permit him to escape pain. Okay, now then, let's... All right, now, just one other thing.
I saw echoes of slavery in my mind on that.
Definitely.
Yeah,
and this is going to go back now to drug behavior and everything else that we'll get to, later on. Now, self-hatred, and this goes back to the first statement I made as one of the first methods that's used to breed self-hatred. Remember, the association of innate and personal and group characteristics with negative feelings and so forth. So then, how do you create self-hatred? You make everything that you innately are negative and painful. So that being black is made to be painful. Being African is made to be painful, you see. Identifying yourself as an African means you don't get rewarded. It means you go hungry. It means you don't get accepted, you see. Mm. And so by stacking all of these negatives onto African characteristics, it motivates the African to escape his characteristics and seek relief through that escape.
There's something that came up that is just such a graphic illustration of what you're saying in an advertising campaign that never made Madison Avenue. A friend of mine was involved in this, and I don't know what the final rejection was based on, but this was in the 60s, and it was for an aspirin, and it said it was going to be positioned in the subways as, this is what you need for the black ache.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it was like, when the whole deal and the whole experience of being black is just too much. Take this for the black ache.
And believe me, we move toward pain relievers, which is, of course, why you look at the drugs, and these fundamentally are pain relievers. And but let's not only talk about drugs. We're going to talk later on about sexual addictions, love, what we call love in our community, and other kinds of behaviors that are relievers of pain. One other statement, because the caller here mentioned something very, very, very rich and fundamental. This self-hatred also is related to this Skinner paradigm. You see, this is how you take knowledge in books and you Africanize it by seeing how it applies and can be used to your own interests.
Yes.
You see, and so, but I'll speak about that later on. I just want to. Oh, you got to.
But let's get to the calls. One more. Go ahead. One more.
Because this relates.
These people are gonna kill me now.
Yes.
Go ahead.
But this relates to the second principle I wanted to mention that produces self-hatred, and that is to actually create the negative characteristics in the individual group via what I call the self-fulfilling vicious cycle, created incompetences and the creation of subcultures, but through the use of this Skinnerian conditioning, create the actual characteristics that you will come to hate later on, and that the individual will come to hate in and of himself. In other words, the black man, as we see him today, is a created person.
Okay.
And he's
an environmentally created person.
Yes, he is conditioned. You see, one of the reasons why you want to remove European power is that you want by removing that power, you also remove his ability to create you. And by gaining that power yourself, you move into the ability to be self-creating.
WIB, I'm Gary Bird. You're on the air with Professor Amos Wilson.
Yeah, man, Carolina. Hello.
Hello.
What's up, going?
Hello. How are you, Robert?
No, man, this is not Robert.
Raja. Too many used to hear now. Muta me used to.
All right.
Yeah, Muta friend from St. Thomas. Lady from St. Thomas.
Yeah.
I will call into big up St. Thomas, and I want everybody to come out on the 14th at License Beach. Right?
All right.
Yeah. And just that's what I want to say. And I want to big up all of my taxi man them. We run from Yellows Valley to Yalas. Big up everybody. Jojo Bongo, Mataran, everybody.
All right.
Bless. Yeah. Big up Skell out of Portland. Bye. Yeah.
Oh, Carolina.
it could never be friend, man. A cable and pan them case against the enemy and him friend. Lord of his mercy. What me tell him say again? Lord of his mercy. Oh God. Oh, you are going people. What me tell him say? Say united we stand and divided we fall. For them not gonna know themselves. Till them back against the wall. United we stand and divided we fall. For them not gonna know themselves. Till them back against the wall. Me tell you no arms up. We no want that boat. Arms out. Upon that we live out. Come again. Arms out. And we no want that boat. Arms out. Upon that we live out. But it's not right. We give us and I step up in a life. And I nothing that the end I give him a fight. But it's not right. We round it I step up in a life. And I nothing that the end I give him a fight. But it's not right. See baby when I step up in a life. And I nothing that the end I give him a fight. But it's not right. See grinds man I step up in a life. And I nothing that the end I give him a fight. But it's not right. See panel him I step up in a life. And I nothing that the end I give him a fight. Me tell you no so you are going to the people. But it's not right. The jungle is a step up in a life. And a next garden man want to give him a fight. It's not right. The garden man a step up in a life. And a next jungle is want to give him a fight. It's not right. The spanglers a step up in a life. And a next shower man want to give him a fight. It's not right. The firehouse a step up in a life. And mall road man want to give him a fight. It's not right. The mall road a step up in a life. And not over hill man want to give him a fight. Me tell you no arms out. We no want that boat. Arms out. Upon that we live out. Arms out. And we no want that boat.
Gratitude is fuel for the actions I partake in. So in doing what I love, I get to keep it up.
Sweet sounding Janine.
Actions leave much room to be mistaken. So in doing what I say, my word is covenant. I expect nothing but the best from myself. Not myself nor me. Putting personality under subordination of the master key, which is the most I in I and I. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. Whatever you're dwelling on is the reality that you're creating. Use your concentration wisely, because your only limitation is your imagination.
Greetings.
Greetings.
Yeah, man.
I'll go on for general.
Tell me now.
Everything blessed.
Everything blessed, man.
Glad to see you come out from Buta. But don't know say you do it. You do Buta.
Oh, that gold teeth.
Yeah, I'm very after that, man.
Look to the east.
Don't know say you
what you say?
So big up, I tell you, about the show, because you know, say right now I'm about the show there. You don't know that.
Yeah.
Prophecy, you see me from longer time, run too much and say me to highlight this still. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, man, so I'm glad me beg people who send come and say, yeah, man, and I'm free, you know, so we can come out, come spin a little thing and go on, so put the thing off for the hospital, you know?
Yes.
Yeah.
No, do your thing, man. Yeah, go and do your thing for go on uplift.
Yeah, man. So I say big up IRF and big up the people who send Thomas. You know, say Dumfries and Prospect, all that man with a bus shop there. You know,
St. Thomas of IRFM place, man.
Alright, I'm not saying nothing.
But the whole of Jamaica still, but
yeah, St. Thomas, yeah, man.
St. Thomas.
We play the most IRFM, man. Yeah, man.
Oh, I
say big up everyone still in them, you know? Yeah, man. I hope them for the best for the 14. Right?
Yes, man.
Yeah, blessed, Lord.
Alright.
Gratitude is fuel for the actions I partake in. So in doing what I love, I get to keep it up. Perceptions leave much room to be mistaken. So in doing what I say, my word is covenant. I expect nothing but the best from myself. Not myself nor me. Putting personality under subordination of the master key, which is the most I in I and I. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. Whatever you're dwelling on is the reality that you're creating. Use your concentration wisely, because your only limitation is your imagination. Priority one is to focus on the most high in the meditation. Develop the routine, keep the room clean, balance the physical and spiritual accommodation. See daily from the written word, learn from real work is to know. The truth is the seed. The real life is to grow into what you need. So as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. Whatever you're dwelling on is the reality that you're creating. Use your concentration wisely, because your only limitation is your imagination. Truth inside the flesh requiring emancipation from the source of the vexation, which is the enemy. Anyhow, you let the mind control, corrupt your state of meditation. You compromise your soul, focus of the goal, and move further from the free. Where you want to be, shaping your destiny, guided by the Most High. No need for competition. The creative cultivation of the nation is the mission. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. Whatever you're dwelling on is the reality that you're creating. Use your concentration wisely, because your only limitation is your imagination. Because your only limitation is your imagination. Because your only limitation is your imagination. Trust inside the flesh requiring emancipation from the source of the vexation, which is the enemy. Anyhow, you let the mind control, corrupt your state of meditation. You compromise your soul, focus off the goal, and move further from the free. Where you want to be, shaping your destiny, guided by the Most High. No need for competition. With creative cultivation of the nation is the mission. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. Whatever you're dwelling on is the reality that you're creating. Use your concentration wisely, because your only limitation is your imagination. In his heart, so is he.
Stepping. Yes, I am.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. You're going good for Muta today, though.
Yeah, man. You're going to sit in and hold the fort, you know?
Yeah, man. You're going, man. I'm like, oh, yeah, keep the black liberation going, you know what I say?
Yeah, man. Give thanks for your kind words, you know?
Yeah, man, because I have to call and endorse it, because today I want to tell them I want to welcome the Canadian poets for the Poetry Festival, Jamaica Poetry Festival 2016.
Yeah?
To them I carry them go to Liberty Hall and make them get the whole Marcus vibration, you know what I mean?
Very good. Yeah,
so when we endorse it, I have to call and full endorse it, you know what I say?
Yeah, man. Respect, man.
The lights are Prof Rock perform Sunday. We have Scruff Mouth, we have L. Jones, you know, we have Israel in the place. So full dust the event there. I have to pay them for coming.
When is it again? Just remind us.
Jamaica Poetry Festival, man. Yes, Safari.
Yeah, event. Man. Just remind us of the date.
13th of August, this Sunday, Louis Bennett Garden Theatre.
Yeah, man.
You know, second workshop starts at 10 a.m. in the morning, 10 to 2.
Yeah, man.
But keep up the good work and move to see them on the grounds next week.
Yes, man.
Sunday.
Yes, man.
Yes, I so keep up the good work and blaze up motor for me there.
Yeah, man. Bless up, man.
Bless up, Roger.
Alright. Yeah, man, Stepping Razor here, you know, the program tight, you know, we just want to get this into that the Justice Department in the United States has found that the Baltimore Police Department for years has hounded black residents who make up most of the city's population. Of course, you know, a whole heap of Jamaicans in Baltimore, you know, them say close to 20,000 or more Jamaicans in Baltimore. So the U.S. Justice Department, them find out, say, well, them know a long time, but them just formalizing it now, that them find out, say, is racism. The Baltimore Police Department has been practicing on black people, systematically stopping, searching, and arresting black people, often with little provocation or rationale. It's not me assessing, you know, this is the U.S. Justice Department agreeing this is so. So it continued in a blistering report coming more than a year after Baltimore erupted into riots over the police-involved death of a 25-year-old black man, Freddie Gray. The Justice Department is sharply critical of policies that encouraged police officers to charge black residents with minor crimes. A copy of the report was obtained by this newspaper. The critique is the latest example of the Obama administration aggressive push for police reforms in the cities where young African Americans men have been dying at the hands of law enforcement Now, the findings which were released yesterday are the first formal step towards the Justice Department's reaching a settlement with Baltimore known as a consent decree in which police practices would be overhauled under the oversight of a federal judge. It takes long for the U.S. Justice Department see them things still, but, but so much racial crime, especially against black people, has increased, especially under this administration in America. It take long for them come up with this still, but them say better late than never. So let's see. As I say, it is a case now where them trying to reach a settlement with the Baltimore, out of that senseless killing of Freddie Gray last year, remember, which created pandemonium in Baltimore last year. So watching that one. Hello, good afternoon. Hello.
Yeah, Roger.
Yeah, what going? How you doing?
Yes, sir.
There, What's up?
Well, I just have big you up in the strong,
Yes, thanks.
Yes, because you're going with your work,
Yeah, man.
At the same time, you're feeling for Bramuta.
Yes, man, definitely.
But hear me now. I want you to do a research and check out your Ubuntu consciousness. Seeing from South Africa there.
The
Ubuntu.
Ubuntu.
Michael Tillinger.
Yeah.
We deal with the Ubuntu vibration and Ubuntu party. Seeing, you need to get yourself in queue and on queue with that. Seeing, right. Because this is an ancient order of black people.
Right.
Your Ubuntu consciousness we are dealing now.
Yeah, man.
Because you see, in this time, we have to come up with it now for we as Jamaican and we as African in the West. Yeah?
Yes.
Seeing?
Yes.
Because it has started from the community corner. And that's how we have to generate the energy from,
Yeah.
See what I mean?
Yeah. Just so they're not send nobody to kill off and we start do it.
Well, you see, when if them come in numbers, we rise up in numbers because they're all over. Because the Ubuntu consciousness, they're all about over the world already, my brother.
Yeah, I know the Ubuntu dance state are coming.
Yes, I know that I come to Marcus thing, but we want to push this thing on the conscious level and the principle of our black people just to live in a brother.
Yes.
Because we don't use money for enslave, You know, see that? And money are cause the poor problem and we have to get rid of it. And we should live without money.
All right, we'll give thanks for your call now because things tight right now in the last part of your program. All right?
Respect. Hello?
Yeah, man.
Hello?
Yeah, man, you're live.
Roger, how you do?
I'm all right, how are you?
Not too bad. Give thanks for you and the program and everything. By the way, I know it's there. I just pay the bills, but it's half an hour my whole on,
Ah, boy.
But I know it's
sorry. I'm sorry. I know it go, but sorry. Here's
my problem now. But I mean, I think Muta should accept now what from them kind of people.
Why?
Seriously.
Why? No, man, Muta deserve him award, man. He deserve him award, man.
No, man, I say him don't deserve it. Man. That's what I discussing. Me not feel him
to put on him Chris African suit and step up with him barefoot and collect him award.
No, but guess what? You see when him take it from them people, come like him a big up them people.
No, I don't think so.
Well,
remember, as far as is working the cultural aspect of him.
I understand that, I just say
it's not in cussing Babylon thing, fan.
Yeah, no, but them people that represent Babylon.
Yeah, man, we just dying to see him put on them African suit and step up with them barefoot, man. We are dying to see it.
Oh, well, we look like we have to agree to disagree on this one. Because, but even I have to tell you, you know what them people represent.
Yeah, man, collect your
some me no feel him should accept it. Yeah. Like thanks, but no thanks.
I say, man, you're mad.
No, man. Because he might pick them up,
Chris African suit. Put on your... Hey, I can't imagine the African suit when I'm going in, man.
I know, but why me no feel him should take nothing from them kind of people.
Collect your award, man. I want him to you, man.
No, people like me he must give him. And him know say
he
know say get it from we already. Me is one of the man them were probably from the first day in the show.
Him deserve it.
No, me not talk about that. Me know everybody know him deserve it.
As a cultural ambassador,
them people they represent. Him not to take it from them. That's how for me feel.
All right.
So, I don't know if you agree with that.
No, man. The man, why? I'm Chris Africa. A man in an African suit, how call it? You know, we not see them thing normally, man.
You can't take them thing from Babylon.
Make pure shirt and tie and necktie, man. Always, you say I go down and call it award. I want to see some man in some African suit, you know, man. Oh,
as I said, look, I have to agree to disagree.
Yeah.
Some people that represent where Muta don't represent.
No,
so, you know, you know it go.
Yeah. So you good though?
Yeah, man.
All right, program. Yeah, man. Give thanks. Here because we have to run now.
Keep you can persuade him not to go.
I'm not doing it at all. I will want to see him go collect him award. All right.
All right, my brother.
Bless
Take
him.
care.
This far, we can go all the way back to the life we once shared.
But shame, oh shame, how we start pumping drugs in the brain. Shame, oh shame, how we turn on each other again and again. When, oh when, do we stop finding someone to blame?
Oh, maybe we're lost, but let's not lose ourselves. Let's live again, my African people. We've traveled oceans and seas.
Time to rise from our knees.
Teach our children the way, so they'll no longer stray away from the life that we once shared.
It's up to you and me to rebuild a family. It's up to you and me to regain that old time respectability. When, oh when, do we start finding someone to blame?
Oh, maybe we're lost, but let's not lose ourselves. Let's live again.
What does this mean then in the long run, ladies and gentlemen? That we as African people, given the deep restructuring that is going on in the world, are going to have to find another economic way out. We are going to have to create jobs. We're going to have to create an economic system. We're going to have to employ ourselves and create means of taking care of our people. That means then that we are going to first have to capture our economic infrastructure from other groups. Number one, because you must accumulate capital, and you must withdraw as much as possible of your capital from others in order to use it for yourself. And this goes on with groups all the time. Reagan did it. Why do you think the poor got poorer and the rich got richer? They ran a game called supply side economics, which meant that if you give the people who have money more money, they will take the money and invested and built factories and hired the people who don't. But we were put in a trick. Well, that's the supply side, you see. In other words, give it to people who got it, and they will invest it and create more. But it didn't work out that way, did it? So the laws were changed, and the system was restructured. This is what you call cutting. When jobs are cut, or when programs are cut, this isn't just a cutting. This means money is being what? Transferred. It is being moved from one group, or one set, into the hands of other set. So this is what you call capital accumulation. The money that was once going to the poor and so forth now is redistributed it to the wealthy. Now the wealthy, in their gracious manner, were supposed to invest it and create jobs, but that wasn't what happened. They played shell games with each other and created paper wealth and so forth, and then sold the companies off and shipped the stuff out and became international citizens and left us in the lurch. Even the whites are in the lurch. Everybody's in the lurch here, see? Now the black community then must accumulate capital so that it can invest in its own infrastructure, which means then it must redistribute its money and its wealth. It must take the money back and reduce the flow of money outward to other groups, accumulate it in itself, and invest it in itself so that it can create abundance for itself.
This far, we can go all the way back to the life we once shared.
But shame, oh shame, how we start pumping drugs in the brain. Shame, oh shame, how we turn on each other again and again. When, oh when, do we stop finding someone to blame?
Oh, maybe we're lost, but let's not lose ourselves. Let's live again, my African people. We've traveled oceans and seas.
Time to rise from our knees.
Teach our children the way, so they'll no longer stray away from the life that we once shared.
It's up to you and me to rebuild the family.